Chapter 1153. Great Sage. Those who were not familiar with these two words would definitely think that this was a high-level expert. However, Morongyu knew that this was not the case. Sage, great sage, and then the undying realm. In other words, in the holy world, great sages were just ordinary sages. They were not very powerful. In fact, Morongyu could understand. In the eyes of sages, everyone in the heavenly realm was just an ant. Therefore, even if someone wanted to control the people in the heavenly realm as puppets, it would not be a high-level sage. Any sage would be able to control them. However, Morongyu did not expect that Hong and the other three would actually plot against him. Moreover, he did not discover anything. Even Hichu did not discover anything. However, Morongyu did not think that the other party was a great sage expert after all. Their strength was far beyond his. How could he possibly discover anything? Hichu had not recovered to his peak state yet. It was normal that he had not recovered. Kid, these four people should be from the upper realm human clan. They must have discovered my existence. Lu Haotsong said lightly. He looked at Morongyu with a hint of disdain in his eyes. Morongyu glared at him. If a supreme being wanted to plot against you, I'm afraid you would not even know how you died. So, don't look at me like that. Lu Haotsong's face suddenly revealed an awkward expression. In fact, there was no need for a supreme being to make a move. There were many people who could be detected and plotted against him. Unfortunately, these four fellows are too cautious. Otherwise, I could have annihilated them directly. Lu Haotsong's eyes flashed with a cold light. You can annihilate them with just these four auras? Morongyu was shocked. At the same time, he felt that it was a little unbelievable. Lu Haotsong looked at Morongyu and did not hide his disdain. What do you think a sage in the undying realm is like? I can't be bothered with you. I'm going to cultivate. Before he finished speaking, his figure flashed and disappeared. Cultivating again? Are you going to break through again? Lu Haotsong felt hurt again. Once again, he was beaten black and blue by Morongyu. Morongyu sat down cross-legged in the depths of the primal chaos secret land and started absorbing the chaos energy at a crazy rate. He wanted to raise his spatial and lightning godhead's realms. At the same time, a strand of his divine consciousness entered the Hichu Luoshu, transforming into his original appearance and arriving in another space. Not bad. Under the premise of time, acceleration, and the invisible enhancement of the blood crystals, their cultivation speed is extremely fast. Morongyu stood on the spot and looked at the people cultivating in front of him with a smile. In front of them were the warriors of Shenzhen's four battle teams, as well as some of the core disciples of Zhao, Jiqing, and Shenzhen, such as Zhang Ao and the others. Morongyu had kept them in the Hichu Luoshu world a long time ago to accelerate time so that they could cultivate, under the condition of burning a large number of chaotic divine veins. The time and the space they were cultivating in was extremely fast. They did not know how much time had passed. In fact, some of the 100,000 battle teams had already broken through to the quasi-saint level. These people's aptitudes were not bad to begin with, but they had always lacked the support of time and resources. Now that they had everything, it was inevitable that their cultivation would soar. However, although they were cultivating with the blood crystals, Morongyu realized that the improvement of their physical body was not ideal. In fact, it was not only them. Even a high-level quasi-saint's physical body did not improve by much. For example, Yang Qin, a rank 10 quasi-saint, had spent most of her time cultivating in the Hichu Luoshu ever since she returned to the God Realm. However, at this moment, her physical body had only been upgraded to the middle grade. Although there were quasi-saint experts who could improve to the upper level, there were only 1 or 2 of them out of 100. As for the rest of the people, almost all of them had only reached the middle level. After reaching the middle level, their physical body could no longer contain the power of the blood crystals. What a waste! Morongyu could not help but feel the pinch. Not only could the blood crystals improve comprehension, but they could also train the physical body. The best effect would be to improve both the physical body and comprehension at the same time. However, many of the battle team's bodies were already saturated. Hence, They could only use the blood crystals to improve their comprehension, which completely wasted the other effect of the blood crystals. Although the God realm does not restrict the cultivation of the physical body, it is not possible to improve the physical body to a higher level. In that case, by the same logic, the people from the deserted world would not be able to improve their cultivation to a higher level in the God realm. As Murong pondered, he had already arrived near the two divine blood crystals that were the size of a small mountain. With Murong current ability, it was impossible for him to refine the two divine blood crystals. This was because the murderous aura contained in them was too terrifying. It could easily kill Murong. Hence, he did not intend to refine them. Instead, he sat down near the divine blood crystals. As long as he was near the divine blood crystals, he could improve his comprehension. Back then, at the bottom of the blood lake, the blood beasts at the peak of the divine grade were the same. Improvement in comprehension. Improvement. The closer Murong was to the divine blood crystals, the greater the improvement in his comprehension. However, it was a pity that it was only Murong's doppelganger that had entered and not his original body. Although there was Hichu Luoshu suppression, the doppelganger could not get any closer to the divine blood crystals. Hence, the improvement in his comprehension was limited. However, it was still much higher than Murong's usual comprehension. Most importantly, the improvement in his doppelganger's comprehension was directly applied to his original body. How foolish! Why didn't I think of cultivating like this before? Murong controlled his doppelganger to sit down and began to comprehend the chaotic celestial record, as well as other cultivation techniques and combat skills. In this way, his original body could cultivate in the chaotic energy and improve his cultivation without any delay. Moreover, his doppelganger could continue to comprehend there. There was no need for Murong to waste his original body's time. Although the doppelganger's effect was not very strong, there was plenty of time. While Murong entered the chaotic secret site to cultivate, the war in the divine world stopped. It was rare for it to be so quiet. On the other hand, the humans and demons above were busy because of Lu Haotsong, who asked them to mistakenly think that Lu Haotsong was from the divine clan. Lu Haotsong had stayed in the chaotic secret site for many years. The chances of them finding out about Lu Haotsong were not high. If that was the case, the war in the divine world would not continue. On the other hand, many experts in the deserted world were also cultivating in the divine world, where the chi of heaven and earth was abundant. However, it was just as Murong expected. Many people's realms stagnated after cultivating to a certain realm. Heavenly King realm, Heavenly Emperor realm. Among the thousands of experts, there were very few who could reach the Heavenly Emperor realm. It was just like how few experts in the divine world could reach the upper realm. In the deserted world, Murong, you can't escape. Outside a certain danger zone, a figure was flying rapidly on the ground. Behind him was a group of people with murderous intent. The person who was being chased was Murong's eldest son, Murong. This guy was in the divine realm, but his physical body had reached the supreme realm. It could be said that he was improving at lightning speed. However, there was a peerless realm expert in the tribe that was chasing after him. Before this, Murong killed the young master of the tribe because of fighting for the blood crystals. Although he had successfully snatched those blood crystals, he had also attracted the crazy pursuit of that tribe. Until now, Murong had been chased for 1,000 years. Damn it, Murong swallowed a piece of upper realm blood crystal. However, he cursed in his heart and felt very aggrieved. After entering the deserted world, he used all kinds of methods to improve his physical body. Although he did not kill or set fire to it, he used all kinds of methods. In addition to his talent, his physical body improved rapidly. However, there were more and more enemies. The one who was chasing after him was only one of the tribes among the many enemies. Moreover, Murong had once killed the descendant of a divine heavenly expert. It's not a good idea to continue running like this. When will it end? The dangerous place in front. Damn it, I'll go all out. In the process of running, Murong felt more aggrieved and unhappy. However, although he was fast, the people behind him would catch up sooner or later. By then, he would have nowhere to run. Enter the dangerous place. Murong Xian gritted his teeth and entered the dangerous place in front of him. If he wanted to get rid of the people chasing after him, he had to do this. Whoosh. However, when they saw Murong Xian enter the danger zone, the people who were chasing after him all stopped in their tracks. Each and every one of them looked in front of them with fear on their faces. After all, Murong Xian was not a native of the deserted world. He did not know about dangerous places. However, the people behind him immediately recognized the dangerous place in front of them. Water Platform Secret Territory. Water Platform Secret Territory was one of the scariest, dangerous places in the deserted world. To a certain extent, it was even scarier than the Blood Lake in the Blood Crystal Mine. This was because the entire secret territory was filled with, from the outside, Water Platform Secret Territory looked like an ordinary mountain range. However, it emitted a strange aura that made people tremble in fear and their hair stand on end. However, when Murong Xian rushed in, he was shocked and horrified. This was because he seemed to have directly crossed through space. What he entered was not a mountain range, but a body of water. Yes, a body of water. The sky and the ground were all water. Murong Xian, on the other hand, rushed into the water. A wave hit, and with a whoosh, Murong Xian disappeared without a trace. It was as if he had never appeared. Bang, bang, bang. The moment Murong Xian disappeared, whether it was Murong Yi in the deserted world, Murong Yu in the chaotic secret territory, or Zhao Jiqing and the others cultivating in the Hichu Luo Shu, at the same time, Murong Xian's soul jade slips in their storage spaces exploded. Murong Xian died. Chapter 1154. The shattering of a soul jade slip signified the death of a person. In an instant, Murong Xian's soul jade slip exploded in the hands of all those who had Murong Xian's soul jade slip. Murong Yu, who had reached a critical juncture in his cultivation and was about to break through to the next realm, suddenly jolted. He stood up abruptly and roared at the sky. "He's dead! He's dead! Who killed my son? Who the hell is it?" Murong Yu roared again and again. In his fury, Murong Yu didn't realize that while he was roaring, his spatial godhead had successfully broken through to the heavenly venerate realm. However, Murong Yu wasn't in the mood to care about that. He was currently in a state of extreme anger and murderous intent due to the loss of his son. "No matter who it is, all of you must die," Murong Yu roared. He took a step forward and disappeared from the spot. Whoosh! The moment Murong Yu disappeared, Lu Haozong appeared out of thin air. However, he couldn't stop Murong Yu. "What's going on? I've never seen him with such a terrifying, murderous intent. He's furious." Lu Haozong stopped in place and frowned deeply. Although it was just a glimpse, the anger, murderous intent, and tyrannical aura emanating from Murong Yu made him, an undying realm expert, feel apprehensive. In particular, Murong Yu's red eyes were like those of a prehistoric beast. It was extremely terrifying. One could only imagine how terrifying Murong Yu was right now. In the Hichu Luoshu world, Zhao Jiqing, Yu Mengqing, Murong Lin, and the others were all cultivating. However, the moment Murong Xian's soul jade slip exploded, they all woke up from their cultivation state. Little Xian, as Murong Xian's biological mother, Zhao Jiqing felt it the most. The moment Murong Xian's soul jade slip exploded, her face instantly turned deathly pale. Her mind felt as if it had been struck by a shocking bolt of lightning, and she almost fainted. Although Yu Mengqing and the others didn't feel as strongly as Zhao Jiqing, their faces were also gloomy. Killing intent surged and filled the air. "What should we do? Little Xian, is he really—" Yu Mengqing panicked. Her face was pale, and she was at a loss for words. Mu Liyue and the others also turned pale. Sadness, anger, and a trace of disbelief. In the God realm, countless people died every second. At their level of cultivation, they had seen far too many deaths. Originally, they had thought that they were already used to death and were indifferent to life. In the face of death, they could remain calm. In the face of death, they could be completely indifferent. However, when Murong Xian's soul jade slip exploded, they realized that the reason why they were so indifferent to life was because the people who died were not their relatives. When their loved ones died, they would still be sad, hopeful, and filled with anger and murderous intent. Perhaps little Xian entered a certain danger zone, just like the danger zones that Murong Yu entered before. His soul jade slip would also explode. Don't you think so? Zhao Jiqing's face was deathly pale, and her body was trembling. She looked at Yu Mengqing and the others and asked. At this moment, Murong Yin, who had been silent all this time, walked up and said with a serious expression, "Mother, big brother hasn't died yet." "Yin, are you sure little Xian is fine?" At this moment, Zhao Jiqing was like a drowning person who had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. She tightly grabbed onto Murong Yan's hands and asked pleadingly. Zhao Jiqing was the most capable leader in Shenzhen other than Murong Yu. Most of the time, she was the one who led Shenzhen. Even when Shenzhen was in danger of annihilation several times, Zhao Jiqing did not panic or fear. But now, where did she look like a strong woman? She was completely an ordinary mother. This was what they meant by concern. Whoosh! Everyone looked at Murong Yin. Zhao Jiqing and Murong Xian were mother and son, and there were some special feelings between them. However, Murong Yin and Murong Xian were twins. There was a special connection between the twins. Their hearts were linked as one. Under normal circumstances, Murong Xian and Murong Yin could sense each other's existence and even some mental activities. Therefore, when she saw Murong Xian's soul jade slip shattering, Murong Yin did not panic. Instead, she seriously sensed. She could still feel Murong Xian's vitality, although it was extremely weak. But after all, there was still vitality, at least he did not die. This was definitely good news for them. I feel that my brother did not die. He may be trapped in a dangerous place, or he may be in a huge crisis. We must find him as soon as possible, Murong Yin said in a deep voice. She sensed that Murong Xian's vitality was very weak, which made her feel a little scared. Back to before Murong Xian's accident. Murong Yi, who had also entered the desolate world, was also being hunted. However, unlike the people who were chasing after Murong Xian, there was only one person chasing after Murong Yi, and it was an extremely beautiful woman who could topple cities. Murong Yi, stop right there. You peeked at me bathing. Are you so irresponsible that you want to run away? You must marry me. This woman had a fair and tender face. She was wearing a camel-colored cotton jacket with a satin collar and a red sandalwood skirt with a water plant pattern. She was wearing a purple silk brocade woven with flowers and mist. Her thick black hair was tied up in a unique bun, and there was a golden hairpin in front of her eyes. Her skin was like jade, and she wore a pure gold ring inlaid with 3 colored gems. There was a belt around her waist, and there was a sachet hanging from it. She wore a pair of shoes embroidered with golden silk and embroidered with double petals of lotus flowers. She was extremely beautiful. Murong Yi's face darkened, and he had a bitter expression. Was he that wretched? No, he definitely did not intentionally peek at that woman bathing. He just happened to pass by that pool, and he happened to see that woman. But it was because of these few coincidences that Murong Yi was chased for hundreds of years. That woman was very powerful, and she had already reached the peerless realm. She was a whole realm stronger than Murong Yi's peerless realm body. Therefore, Murong Yi was not her opponent at all. He had been captured by this woman many times. However, although the woman chased after him, she did not have the intention to kill him. She just wanted him to take responsibility and let Murong Yi marry her. This made Murong Yi not know whether to laugh or cry. Moreover, after the incident with Xian Yu, Murong Yi avoided women, especially beautiful women like snakes and scorpions. Not to mention that he only saw Ouyang Qian's body by accident. He did not even know her background. Even if she knew Ouyang Qian, he would not marry her. Therefore, Murong Yi kept running away, because Ouyang Qian did not have the intention to kill him. Therefore, even if he was captured, he still managed to escape several times. Ouyang Qian, I didn't see anything. You'd better find another man. Morong, he said with a black face as he ran away quickly. After being chased for hundreds of years, Morong, he not only knew the woman's name, but also her personality. You must take responsibility. Ouyang Qian did not let go. You can't force a melon to be sweet. Let me go. With your beauty, I believe that those who want to marry you can line up all the way to the God realm. Those are all ordinary people. Sister doesn't like them at all. Only you. You must take responsibility. Morong even had the heart to die. He could not win in a fight, could not escape, and could not win in an argument. He was so depressed in his heart. Brat, I'll make you take responsibility. Ouyang Qian was very proud. She probably thought that Morong he would not be able to escape from her no matter how hard he tried. Suddenly, Morong Yi, who had been running away, stopped abruptly. Ouyang Qian was overjoyed. With a step, she crossed countless space and time and directly rushed towards Morong Yi. At the same time, she struck out with her palm to seal Morong Yi. But at this time, Morong Yi suddenly turned around. His eyes were red, and he looked at Ouyang Qian with a ferocious face. Ouyang Qian, I can marry you, but you have to promise me one thing. Ouyang Qian immediately retracted her palm. Then, she looked at Morong Yi with joy. Okay, whatever you want. I want to borrow the power of your tribe to help me take revenge. Morong Yi's face was gloomy, and a cold, murderous intent burst out. It was very terrifying. Ouyang Qian was immediately shocked, because she had been chasing Morong Yi for hundreds of years. She had never seen Morong Yi with such a terrifying, murderous intent and anger. It shouldn't be hatred for me, right? Ouyang Qian was a little nervous. Morong Yi, what's wrong with you? What happened? Ouyang Qian asked a little nervously. My brother died. In the desolate world. I want revenge. I want to kill all of those bastards. I want revenge. Morong Yi said, and roared again and again. Sparkling tears appeared in the corner of his eyes. Okay, let's go back to the tribe immediately. Ouyang Qian was also angry. She was Morong Yi's woman. Morong Yi's big brother was her uncle. Now, someone killed her uncle? It was simply overturning the sky. Killing my family, no matter who it is, must die. If gods block, I will kill gods. If saints block, I will kill saints. Morong Yi's murderous intent surged. There was only endless anger and murderous intent. However, they didn't know who killed Morong Yi. Therefore, he could only borrow the power of Ouyang Qian's tribe. He couldn't take revenge alone, but he must take revenge for Morong Yi. Morong Yi wasn't Morong Yan. Morong Yi could sense that Morong Yi wasn't dead, but he couldn't. Therefore, when he saw Morong Yi's soul jade slip shatter, he thought that Morong Yi had died. Of course, it wasn't that he didn't think that Morong Yi was trapped in some kind of dangerous place, causing the soul jade slip to shatter. However, no matter what, he had to kill the people who harmed Morong Yi. Moreover, if he was alive, he had to see him. If he was dead, he had to see his corpse. He couldn't do all of this alone, so he had to borrow the power of Ouyang Qian's tribe. Chapter 1155. Morong Qian's death made Morong Yu very regretful. If he had known earlier, he would not have entered the chaotic secret land to cultivate, but first entered the desolate world to rescue the two of them. While regretting, he also felt very guilty. Guilty to Morong Qian, guilty to Zhao Jiqing and others. Morong Yu, who was filled with guilt and regret, immediately left the chaotic secret land and quickly rushed to the entrance of the desolate world. Even if Morong Qian had fallen, he still had to go in. Taking revenge for Morong Qian was one thing. He also had to rescue Morong Qian. He did not want such a thing to happen again. He did not have the face to face Zhao Jiqing and others. Originally, he was not willing to enter the Hichu Luoshu world for Zhao Jiqing and others. But in the end, he still entered the Hichu Luoshu world. However, the sorrowful scene that he imagined, Zhao Jiqing and the others did not appear. Although Zhao Jiqing and others were pale and murderous, they did not seem to be very sad. Morong Yu suddenly felt a little angry in his heart. If they were indifferent to the death of Murong Xian, it would be too cold. Sensing Murong Yu's anger, Murong Yin immediately took a few steps forward and said in a deep voice, "Father, big brother should be fine." Murong Yu's footsteps stopped in an instant. The muscles on his face twitched, and he was a little excited. Little Xian is really okay? Murong Yu also knew that twins, a boy and a girl, would have a special connection between them. Since Murong Yin said so, Murong Xian naturally did not really fall. No wonder Zhao, Jiqing, and others were not so sad. "Father, although I can sense Big Brother's vitality, but Big Brother seems to be trapped in a dangerous place, and his vitality is extremely weak. We still have to find him as soon as possible, or else I'm worried." Murong Yu nodded. "This time, we will all go to the desolate world." After saying that, Murong Yu's figure flashed and disappeared from Hichu Luo Shu. After appearing in the eastern wilderness, Murong Yu immediately spread his angelic wings and rushed to the entrance of the wilderness world at his fastest speed. By now, most people knew where the desolate world's entrance was. Because of this, when Murong Yu arrived at the entrance, there were already many people in the vicinity. Many people had entered the place. These people all felt that there were many blood crystals in the desolate world. However, they never thought that with so many people going in, why didn't anyone come out? Even the people from the desolate world couldn't come out? Murong Yu was like a rock spreading its wings. He flew across the sky and entered the desolate world's entrance, disappearing from everyone's sight. Boom! Is that the leader of the Human Alliance? He entered the desolate world? Someone with sharp eyes recognized Murong Yu's identity. Could it be that some treasure has appeared in the desolate world? "No, I'm going in too." Seeing Murong Yu enter, many experts rushed in. However, they didn't know that the desolate world was hell for them. Swish! After Murong Yu entered the desolate world, he released Zhao, Jiqing, and the others from Hichu Luoshu world. In fact, Murong Yu didn't need to let them come out at this time. However, he needed the special feeling that Murong Yin had for Murong Xian. The desolate world was neither big nor small, but to find a person was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Murong Yu didn't know where Murong Xian had appeared. Even if he wanted to follow his aura in the void, it was difficult, because he couldn't find Murong Xian's aura at all. "Father, brother's direction is that way." As soon as she appeared, Murong Yin carefully sensed her surroundings. After a long time, she pointed to the north and said. Murong Yu nodded and released Zhao, Jiqing, and the others into the Hichu Luoshu world again. Then he used his power to wrap Murong Yin and soared into the sky. Spreading his angel wings, Murong Yu turned into a stream of light and quickly disappeared into the distant sky. "Yin, you just need to sense Xian. Don't worry about anything else," Murong Yu instructed while flying. Murong Yin didn't say anything and just nodded heavily. Because of his relationship with Murong Yin, Murong Yu didn't need to ask for information at all, nor did he need to take detours. He went straight all the way, his speed extremely fast. However, during this process, he also saw a large number of people rushing forward. The direction was the same as them. What's the situation? Could it be that some treasure appeared in front? Is Xian trapped because of that treasure? Murong Yu was puzzled. Whoosh! He stretched out his large hand and grabbed at a supreme-grade expert who was rapidly moving forward on ground. This expert, who was in the superb realm, didn't react at all. He only saw the scenery in front of him change, and then he suddenly found himself in the void. Reading his memory. After catching this person, Murong Yu began to read his memory. After a few breaths, he threw this person down again with a gloomy face. After this superb expert landed, he looked at the empty sky with a puzzled face. What's going on? Are those all illusions? He felt that he was caught, and it seemed that someone was reading his memory. However, everything happened in an instant. It was so fast that he couldn't react, as if it had never happened. Father, what's wrong? Seeing Murong Yu's gloomy face after reading the superb realm expert's memory, Murong Yin couldn't help but ask. Murong Yu didn't say anything. He just transferred a part of what he read into Murong Yin's memory. Then, Murong Yin knew why Murong Yu's face was so gloomy. There was indeed a treasure appearing in front of them. In front of them was one of the scariest places in the deserted world, the water platform secret realm. Even a person at the peak of the divine level would die if they entered there. Not long ago, the water platform secret realm had suddenly erupted with strange phenomena. Although the water platform secret realm was a place of death, it had never erupted with strange phenomena. Therefore, many people thought that the appearance of this strange phenomenon was the birth of a treasure. However, this wasn't the point. Even if there was a treasure here, it had nothing to do with Murongyu. The reason why his face was gloomy was because he knew from the expert's memory that someone had broken into the water platform secret realm. That person was Murongxian. Murongxian had just stepped into the water platform secret realm, and a strange phenomenon had erupted. Was this a coincidence? No matter what, Murongxian had a 90% chance of dying in this place. It was very dangerous. Father, brother's life force is gradually strengthening. He's fine now, Murongyin said in a low voice. The closer they were to the water platform's secret realm, the stronger Murongxian's life force became. On the other side, Murongyin and Ouyang Qian had already returned to their tribe. Murongyin didn't know which tribe Ouyang Qian was from. Moreover, what was her status in the tribe? He didn't know any of this. However, when they returned to the Tianhua tribe, Murongyin was shocked. The Tianhua tribe was a super tribe in the deserted world. However, this wasn't what shocked Murongyin. What shocked him the most was Ouyang Qian's identity, the Tianhua tribe's holy lady. Holy lady. In the tribe, Ouyang Qian's prestige was second only to the tribe leader. Moreover, Ouyang Qian wasn't just a holy lady. She was also a goddess in the hearts of countless men in the Tianhua tribe. While he was shocked, Murongyin felt a headache. Didn't Ouyang Qian have many followers? Among them, there were countless outstanding people. Could it be that just because he accidentally saw her bathing, he was forced to marry her as his wife? Under Ouyang Qian's command, the Tianhua tribe's intelligence network quickly started working. In less than half a day, they already knew that something had happened to Murongxian in the water platform secret realm. Let's go to the water platform secret realm. Murongyin didn't hesitate. Revenge could be taken later. They had to find Murongxian first. Before he saw Murongxian's body, he wouldn't believe that Murongxian had really died. Immediately, Murongyin and Ouyang Qian led the Tianhua tribe's strong cultivators to the water platform secret realm. Back to Murongxian himself. Then, had he really died? In reality, just as Murongyin had sensed his life force, he hadn't died. However, he wasn't in a good situation now. He could die at any time. That day, Murongxian had no choice but to rush into the water platform's secret realm. There was water in the sky and on the ground. Moreover, the water was no less powerful than the blood in Famine's heart. Even a divine-grade cultivator's body could be destroyed instantly. A wave crashed over, and Murongxian disappeared without a trace. However, what was strange was that Murongxian's body wasn't destroyed immediately. When he came to his senses, he realized that he had entered the bottom of the lake. At least, that was what he felt. However, he didn't feel good. His four limbs were spread open as if he was frozen. At the same time, the water kept rushing over and passing over his body. Pain, tearing pain. Every time the water flowed over his body and soul felt as if millions of needles were stabbing into them. It was an indescribable pain. Murongxian almost fainted. However, there was a force acting on him that kept him awake and prevented him from fainting. Clearly bearing the indescribable pain, Murongxian wanted to die. What's going on? Murongxian was in pain, angry, and confused. Suddenly, Murongxian's pupils constricted, because, just a moment ago, a person who seemed to be frozen like him quickly flowed past him. However, the difference was that he was still alive. However, that person didn't have any signs of life. While Murongxian was shocked, another corpse in the same position flowed past him. In the next half a day, Murongxian saw hundreds of corpses in the same position pass by him. Chapter 1156. There were far more than 100 corpses. Murong Xian had seen over 1,000 corpses. What about the corpses that Murong Xian hadn't seen or had turned into powder? Murong Xian wasn't frightened or anxious. He was just confused. Why were those people all the same? What was going on? Who was the mastermind behind all this? The water continued to wash Murong Xian's soul, body, and everything else. The tearing pain became more and more intense. However, Murong Xian couldn't faint. It was as if the existence behind him wanted him to endure the tearing pain. It was like this for many days. At first, Murong Xian thought that he might as well just pass out. However, after enduring for a few days, the anger in his heart rose. He was a stubborn person. Ever since he felt that he was being manipulated, his determination rose. You want to torture me, right? Then I'll persevere until the end. Let's see if you can torture me to death. Therefore, in the following days, Murong Xian clenched his teeth and endured. At first, he only felt endless pain and pain. However, after clenching his teeth and enduring the pain for a period of time, Murong Xian suddenly felt the intense pain begin to weaken. It wasn't that the pain had weakened. It was that his endurance had increased. Moreover, after enduring the terrifying pain and torture, his soul and body had also undergone a terrifying upgrade. His body had been forcefully upgraded to the absolute level. When he entered the water platform's secret realm, he was only at the absolute level. His soul had also become abnormally strong. If the soul of a god was divided into 9 levels, an ordinary expert, even a 10th level quasi-saint, would only be at the lowest level. However, Murong Xian's soul had already been upgraded to the 7th level. Just a small trick. Continue if you can. Feeling that the pain in his body had lessened, Murong Xian laughed loudly. However, not long after, his laughter suddenly stopped. Because at this moment, the pain that was 100 times more intense than before once again descended on his soul and body. Murong Xian gritted his teeth and persevered. While Murong's pavilion was resisting, Murong Yu finally arrived outside the Water Dei's secret realm. At this moment, the entire water platform's secret realm was flashing with divine light. Waves of incomparably powerful, baleful aura burst out continuously, sweeping out in all directions like a tidal wave. No one could get close to the Water Dei's secret realm, because no one could withstand that terrifying, baleful aura. Murong Yu also stopped a distance away from the Water Dei's secret realm. His face was gloomy as he looked at the Water Dei's secret realm. Murong's beautiful face suddenly changed. Such a terrifying, baleful aura. Can Big Brother withstand it? How's little Xian's vitality? Murong Yu asked in a deep voice. His life force is abnormally active, but I can feel that he is suffering unspeakable pain. Murong Yin first sensed the situation of Murong Xian, then said, "How are you?" Seeing Murong Yan's pale face and pained expression, Murong Yu couldn't help but ask with concern. At the same time, he used his power to form a huge shield around her body, blocking the baleful aura's invasion. Vitality surged into her body and quickly washed over her. Murong Yan's face was a bit pale and even a bit scared. "Father, I'm fine. The pain is acting on Big Brother, because I have a special connection with him. Once I sense him, I will also feel pain. But what I'm enduring is only a billionth of it." At this point, Murong Yin and Murong Yu's faces both turned ugly. If a billionth of the pain was enough to make Murong Yin so unbearable, then how terrifying was the pain that Murong Xian himself was enduring. Murong Yu's face was so gloomy that it was about to drip water. Even he couldn't withstand that kind of pain, let alone Murong Xian. In fact, Murong Yu still underestimated Murong Xian. Or it could be said that he underestimated Murong Xian's endurance. Murong Xian's endurance was extremely strong. Otherwise, he would have already seen the corpse. "You enter the treasure space first. I'll go save little Xian," Murong Yu said, and was about to put Murong Yin into the Hichu Luoshu. "Wait." At this time, Murong Yin suddenly stopped Murong Yu. Murong Yu frowned slightly and looked at Murong Yin, but saw Murong Yan's face full of surprise. "Father, I received Big Brother's transmission." Murong Yin was excited. Now, there was nothing more exciting than knowing that Murong Xian was safe and sound. Murong Yu's eyes flashed with a touch of light, and he immediately breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. Big Brother said he's trapped in the water, but his life isn't in any danger. He told us not to rashly enter the water. Because many people are trapped inside, he's afraid we'll be trapped inside too. It turned out that just before this, Murong Xian, who'd been gritting his teeth in the water platform's secret realm, had suddenly sensed Murong Yan's presence. As twins, their sensory abilities were extremely strong. Even the cloud platform's secret realm couldn't isolate them. It should be known that the cloud platform's secret realm had blocked Murong Yu's transportation formation. Otherwise, Murong Yu could have directly teleported over through the Hichu Luo Shu. Sensing Murong Yin, Murong Xian immediately knew that Murong Yu and the others knew something had happened to him, and had hurried over to rescue him. If it were any other place, Murong Xian definitely wouldn't have stopped Murong Yu and the others from coming to rescue him. He'd even lead them in. However, the water platform was too terrifying. How many people could endure the excruciating pain that they could only passively endure? So what if Murong Yu was strong? If he couldn't endure the pain, wouldn't he end up like the corpses he'd seen earlier? Therefore, he immediately stopped Murong Yu and the others from entering. However, although he could sense Murong Yin directly, the water platform's secret realm's resistance was too great. He could only give a rough description of the situation. Although he knew that Murong Xian was fine for now, who knew how long Murong Xian could endure? Moreover, Murong Xian would definitely only report the good news and not the bad news. Murong Yu couldn't imagine what kind of torture he was enduring right now. Therefore, he had to enter the water platform's secret realm. Little Yin, go into the treasure space first. I want to enter the water platform secret realm. Murong Yu said hesitantly. He wasn't hesitating about whether or not to enter the water platform secret realm. He had to go in. He was hesitating about whether or not he should bring the people from Hichu Luoshu inside. I should send them back to the realm of gods first. Once I'm trapped, there's still them. Otherwise, our entire family will be wiped out. He thought to himself. He was about to put Murong Yin away and return to the realm of gods at the same time. Which bastard forced my big brother into the water platform secret realm? Just then, an angry roar rang out. The voice shook the heavens like rolling thunder. It's little E. Murong Yin frowned. Murong Yu's face darkened. Is this bastard looking to die? Murong Yi's strength had reached the heavenly venerate level, but in the desolate world, he was nothing. Could it be that in these thousands of years, he'd been able to raise his body to the peak of the saint level? If he didn't have that strength, he'd be courting death by shouting like that. Indeed, which bastard is making a ruckus here? Before Murong Yi could finish his sentence, someone had already roared furiously. Their murderous aura was overflowing with murderous intent. Some people had even rushed in the direction of the voice. You're courting death. Murong Yu's eyes flashed with a cold, murderous intent. With him here, these bastards still dared to touch his son? He sent out a force to wrap Murong Yin up. Murong Yu took a step forward and disappeared. Ouyang Qian looked at Murong Yi, speechless, but she didn't say anything. She knew how angry Murong Yi was. A ripple appeared in the void, and then two figures appeared out of nowhere. Ouyang Qian's murderous intent sword. She took a step forward and sent out a palm strike, covering the void in front of her. She locked on to the two figures that appeared out of nowhere and slammed down hard. Don't attack. Murong Yi was originally very angry and unhappy. Therefore, when the two figures appeared, he thought that someone was going to attack him because they couldn't stand it. Therefore, he didn't stop Ouyang Qian from attacking. However, the moment Ouyang Qian attacked, he inadvertently glanced at the two figures from the corner of his eye. Instantly, his heart skipped a beat. Then he called out to Ouyang Qian. Ouyang Qian didn't react in time and couldn't withdraw her power. At this moment, Murong Yi had already taken a few steps forward. Father, sister, it's over. Ouyang Qian was shocked and immediately withdrew her power. They were Murong Yi's father and sister. She was going to marry Morong-yi. If she didn't do this, she would never be able to become Murong's daughter-in-law in this lifetime. Father, sister, are you here because of Big Brother? These bastards forced Big Brother into the water platform's secret realm. They all deserve to die. After seeing Murong-yu and his sister, Murong-yi was shocked at first. Then, he gritted his teeth and roared with murderous intent. Fourth brother, don't be rash. Your big brother is fine for now. Seeing Murong-yi's bloodshot eyes and murderous intent, Yin Murong was happy because she saw family in Murong-yi. Big brother is really not dead? Bah, I jinxed it. Is Big Brother really okay? Murong-yi was stunned at first, then he was overjoyed. Murong-yi nodded. Ha ha! Murong-yi laughed loudly. His laughter shook the sky. While Murong-yi was laughing wildly, Ouyang Qian had already arrived in front of Murong-yu. She first bowed respectfully to Murong-yu and said, "Greetings, father." In an instant, time stopped. Murong-yi's laughter stopped abruptly. He first looked at Ouyang Qian in shock, then he fell to the ground with a plop. Chapter 1157. Daughter-in-law. When they heard Ouyang Qian calling herself Murong-yu's daughter-in-law, everyone except Ouyang Qian was shocked. Murong-yu, the strong cultivators of Tianhua tribe, and Murong-yi were all shocked. Among them, Murong-yi was the most shocked. When he heard Ouyang Qian's words, he fell to the ground. He was scared out of his wits. Look at you. How could you be so careless? Ouyang Qian came to Murong-yi's side with a smile and reached out to help him up. However, Murong-yi stood up first and took a few steps back to keep a distance from Ouyang Qian. Then, he looked at Ouyang Qian expressionlessly. Ouyang Qian, are you crazy? When did you become my daughter-in-law? In his shock, Murong-yi was a little angry. Ouyang Qian kept forcing him to take responsibility, and that was fine. After all, Murong-yi had seen her naked body by accident. However, Ouyang Qian's actions really made him angry. Murong-yi had never thought of getting married, so he had always rejected Ouyang Qian, even though she was extremely beautiful. By doing this, Ouyang Qian was forcing him to submit in front of Murong-yu. This had already crossed his bottom line. Fourth brother. Already married? Great. We didn't know. Murong-yin looked at Ouyang Qian, whose beauty was not inferior to her own, and a smile appeared on her face. Murong-yi's face darkened, and he said, I have nothing to do with her. Father, sister, don't listen to her nonsense. Since you're not ready, let's talk about this later. Seeing that Murong-yi was really angry, Ouyang Qian quickly said, this kind of thing could not be rushed. Her actions had successfully attracted Murong-yu's attention. If she were to go overboard, Murong-yi would really hate her for it. If that was the case, she would really have no fate with Murong-yi. From beginning to end, Murong-yi did not say a word. He understood Murong-yi and knew that Murong-yi still had obstacles in his heart. Because of the matter with Xianyu, he had been avoiding women like they were poisonous snakes and scorpions. Even after such a long time, he still hadn't been able to undo the knot in his heart. Therefore, he did not believe that Ouyang Qian was Murong-yi's wife. But Murong still needed a woman to untie this knot in his heart. And Ouyang Qian was one of the best candidates. Murong-yu could see that Ouyang Qian really liked Murong. He could directly see through Ouyang Qian's thoughts. Ouyang Qian, is it? I did not prepare any gifts in a hurry. Consider this sacred tier sacred artifact as a greeting gift, Murong-yu said, looking at Ouyang Qian with a smile. At the same time, he brought out a sword and handed it to Ouyang Qian. Ouyang Qian was overjoyed. She was just Murong-yu. This meant that he had accepted her. She immediately took it and was overjoyed. But Murong-yi was not happy. His face was gloomy. Ouyang Qian, come here, I have something to say. Murong-yu nodded slightly to Ouyang Qian, then walked to the side. Ouyang Qian was stunned for a moment before she happily followed after him. Murong-yi, however, had a depressed look on his face. He was really depressed, looking at Murong-yu's attitude. Didn't he admit that Ouyang Qian was his daughter-in-law? This was not a good thing, because he had never thought of marrying a wife. Second sister, that Oyanshin is really not my daughter-in-law. I have nothing to do with her. Father, what are you doing? Murong Yi walked to Murong Yan's side and said with a depressed face, Fourth brother, don't be shy. Murong Yan's words made Murong Yi's face turn black again. He knew that he could not defend himself now. Father, I wonder what you want to say to your daughter-in-law? After coming to the side, Murong Yi waved his hand and set up a soundproof restriction around the two of them. Seeing this, Oyanshin immediately knew that what Murong Yi wanted to say was definitely not a small matter. Therefore, she was excited but also dignified. You really like little E? You really love him? Murong Yi looked at Oyanshin and asked instead of answering. Yes. Oyanshin did not hesitate. If at the beginning, she only wanted Murong Yi to take responsibility, then in the hundreds of years she chased Murong Yi, she had already fallen in love with Murong Yi. Otherwise, she would not have chased Murong Yi for hundreds of years just to make him take responsibility. You are not bad. Murong Yi is lucky to have you as his daughter-in-law. Hearing this, Oyanshin instantly felt that she was hit by happiness. She was overjoyed. What could be more exciting than being satisfied with oneself? Of course, Oyanshin only thought that Murong Yi was only talking about her appearance. As for other aspects, Murong Yi did not know at all. What she did not know was that Murong Yi was not talking about her appearance, but her inner self. Do you know why Little Yi did not accept you? Murong Yi sighed and thought of the scene when Murong Yi was captured by Xianyu. Oyanshin frowned slightly. I always felt that he had something on his mind, as if he was resistant to me. And I realized that he was not only resistant to me, he was also resistant to all women. Murong Yi looked at Oyanshin with a gaze of admiration. Murong Yi hid his attitude towards women very well. If one did not know him well, they would not be able to discover this. He has a knot in his heart. Murong Yi immediately told her about what happened that day. After hearing this, Oyanshin's eyes flashed with a cold, killing intent. If Xianyu had not been killed, she would have rushed out of the god world to kill her. While she was angry, she also felt heartache. She felt heartache for Murong Yi. The knot in his heart caused by women can only be untied by women, and you're the best candidate. Once you untie Little Yi's knot, you will be Murong Yi's real daughter-in-law. I will definitely do it. Oyanshin was determined. She had already made up her mind. Little E, Oyanshin is a good lady. Don't miss out on her. After the two of them returned, Murong Yi said something that almost made Murong faint. He did not understand. Why were they so satisfied with Oyanshin when they had just met? Was Oyanshin really that good? Why did he not feel anything? Immediately, he said with a gloomy face, Father, let's talk about this later. Let's save Big Brother first. Murong Yi nodded, looked at the water platform's secret realm, and said, Little E, I will send you to the god world first. Oyanshin, come with me. Oyanshin immediately nodded. She could not wait to be with Murong every day. Father, Big Brother has sent another message, Murong Yin said with a serious look on her face. She then began to sense the message seriously. After a long while, she showed a happy expression and said, Father, Big Brother said that he is fine now. He has successfully passed the test and is about to receive the inheritance. Once he receives the inheritance, he will leave. Now, the water platform's secret realm will not hurt him. Inheritance? Murong Yi was stunned. What kind of inheritance could there be in this place? It was a place that even peak divine heavenly sovereigns did not dare to enter. It must not be the experts from the desolate world. Of course, it could not be the inheritance of experts from the god world. Then there were only two possibilities. One was the inheritance of a saint. After all, in the war with the desolate world, many saints died in the god world. It was possible that the inheritance of those saints was in the eastern wilderness. If it was not the inheritance of a saint, then it must be the desolate world's inheritance. The eastern wilderness, although it could not be compared to the eldritch world, the heavenly wilderness, the savage wilderness, the desolate world, and the demonic wilderness. But it was still a super expert in the desolate world. Otherwise, the higher-ups would not want to revive him to fight against the divine clan. if Murong Yin really received the inheritance of the Eastern Wilderness. It was scary just thinking about it. However, these were all secondary. The most important thing was that Murong Yin was fine. Since that is the case, you all go to the treasure space to cultivate first. I will guard here. Murong Yu said after thinking for a while. Ouyang Qian immediately instructed the experts from the Tianhua tribe to return to the tribe. Then, she entered the Hichu Luoshu world with Murong Yin and the other two, leaving only Murong Yu outside. Did Murong Yin really receive the inheritance? Whose inheritance was it? Back to before. The water in the water platform's secret realm kept washing Murong Yin. While Murong Yin suffered indescribable pain, it kept increasing the level of his soul and physical body. A level 9 soul, a body at the peak of the divine grade. After an unknown amount of time, Murong Yin's bitter days finally came to an end. He reached the peak of the god world's physical body. Murong Xian didn't know how much time had passed. He only knew that every wave of water made him grit his teeth and endure the excruciating pain for thousands of years. If there were no accidents, the time in the water platform's secret realm should have accelerated. He was tortured again and again. Murong Yan's teeth were clenched, and he endured it. When his soul and physical body reached the peak of the god world, the water no longer had any effect on his body. There was no more pain. Then, Murong Yan's body was pulled into a huge hall by a force. The main hall was empty. Aside from the middle-aged man who was sitting on the main seat at the back, who was surrounded by a murderous aura, there was only Murong Xian. Human, congratulations on passing my test. You barely qualify to receive my inheritance. Inheritance? Murong Yan's body froze. So the water that washed him was just a test? And the corpses he saw before were all people who could not pass the test. What kind of inheritance was this? Murong Yan's heart was filled with doubts. Just as he was about to ask, he felt himself being drowned by a glaring light. Then, a huge amount of memories rushed into his mind like a stormy sea. Even though his soul and physical body had reached the peak of the god world, he felt like he was about to explode from the huge amount of memories. No wonder he had to accept the test. If he did not have such a huge physical body and soul, he would not be able to take it. Even so, he was about to explode. Without any further questions, Murong Yan's body immediately sat down and started to absorb the inheritance. At the same time, at the most crucial moment, he did not forget to send a message to Murong Yin. Chapter 1158. Murong's pavilion was completely silent. That middle-aged man's inheritance contained too much information. He had to quickly refine it so that he wouldn't explode. As for Murong Yu, he had stood guard outside the Water Dei's secret realm for several years. Father, I can't feel any pain from Big Brother's body anymore. On the contrary, I can feel the joy in his heart. He must be accepting the inheritance. On this day, Murong Yan's voice sounded in Murong Yu's ears. Murong Yu nodded. That's good. Yin, don't disturb your big brother. Let's go back first. Murong's pavilion was fine. Murong Yu's heart was also at ease. After returning to the God Realm from the God Hill Mountain, Murong Yu appeared in the chaotic secret realm. As soon as Murong Yu appeared, Lu Haotsong immediately appeared beside him and asked with concern, Kid, what happened? Murong Yu's heart warmed. He smiled and said, My eldest son's soul jade slipped shattered. Lu Haotsong's expression changed drastically. Could it be that the higher-ups attacked you? If I had known, I would have killed the deans of the 4 great academies. Seeing Lu Haotsong's murderous expression, Murong Yu smiled. We can't kill those 4 for now. If we kill them, the higher-ups will immediately notice. If a large number of saints descend, we won't be able to resist. Also, little Xian's soul jade slip shattered because he fell into a dangerous place. He's fine. There are many dangerous places like that. Usually, there are great opportunities in such places. What opportunity did your son have? Murong Yu's expression became serious. He received an inheritance. In the desolate world, Murong Yu didn't hide anything. He told Murong Pavilion in detail. Are you suspecting that the inheritance that Murong Xian obtained is from a saint or the eastern wilderness? Lu Haozong's expression turned serious. Back then, many saints had died in battle. If he could obtain their inheritance, it would definitely be a good thing. There would not be any future troubles. But what if it was Desolate's inheritance? Could humans accept Desolation's inheritance? And if he really did receive Desolate's inheritance, what kind of trouble would there be? One had to understand that Huang was also known as the world-destroying bug. They specialized in destroying civilizations. If the Murong Xian really accepted the Eastern Wilderness inheritance, would it become like the Eastern Wilderness? Does he have an innate hatred for civilization? Want to destroy the civilization? Lu Haozong didn't know either. It was because no one had ever been able to receive Desolate's inheritance. It's fine if it's the legacy of a sage. But if it's the Eastern Wilderness inheritance, then we'll see how it goes. Murong Yu felt a little helpless. However, if Murong Xian accepted the Eastern Wilderness inheritance, then the people above would definitely not be able to revive the Eastern Wilderness. Once this happened, the higher-ups would definitely vent their anger on them. At that time, it would be a tragedy for them. What are you afraid of? If the higher-ups attack you, then bring them all here. Lu Haozong patted Murong Yu's shoulder and said calmly. Murong Yu's face was filled with black lines. He had been here alone for a long time and was already extremely lonely. He couldn't wait for more people to accompany him here. However, even if they can't revive the Eastern Wilderness, there are still many Desolates' corpses in the divine world. They can still revive the other Desolates. If we ask them to stop, then we can only start a war with them. Murong Yu said with a frown. If the higher-ups want to come down, they need to consume a lot of resources. Moreover, their realms must be sealed. Once they burst out beyond the divine world's limit, the divine world will collapse, and they will be pulled back by the power of the holy world in an instant. Success is due to desolation. Failure is also due to desolation. If it wasn't for the war between desolation and humans, the divine world was almost destroyed. With the divine world's limit at that time, even an honorable could unleash his strongest power. But after that war, the divine world couldn't support a saint's strongest attack. Murong Yu frowned slightly. If that was the case, he would have to control the entire heaven region after the higher-ups sent their troops down. Only then would the divine world have the power to fight against the upper realm. Moreover, he didn't know when Murong Xian would be able to fully accept the inheritance. Once he completed the inheritance, and it was the Desolate's inheritance, the higher-ups would definitely know immediately. First, let's raise the lightning divinity to the heavenly venerable realm. Murong Yu muttered and was about to leave. If you want to fight against the holy world, just relying on the divine world's people is not enough. The Eastern Desolates have internal worlds, and the other Desolates might have them too. If you can gather all the experts of the Desolates, even a saint wouldn't be your opponent. When Murong Yu was about to leave, Lu Haozong suddenly said, "There are no entrances to the Desolates. Moreover, even if there are entrances, if there are no exits, you can only enter and not exit." Murong Yu said with a frown. Right now, he was the only one who could freely enter and exit the Desolates. Lu Haozong frowned slightly. This was also a problem. If you went in and couldn't come out, then it would be a different story. After being reminded by Lu Haozong, Murong Yu immediately left the Chaos Secret Plane and returned to the divine world. He ordered everyone to pay attention and inquire about the entrance to the Desolates on each continent. After all this last night, Murong Yu returned to the Chaos Secret Plane. The other Desolates were just floating clouds. Only by raising his realm and controlling the heaven region was the right thing to do. When Murong Xian was in trouble, Murong Yu's spatial divine deity had already broken through to the heavenly venerable realm. Therefore, Murong Yu didn't immediately cultivate the lightning divinity, but spent hundreds of years to raise the spatial divine deity to the peak of the heavenly venerable realm. At this time, hundreds of years had already passed. It was very close to the time of the 1,000-year agreement. Cultivate the lightning divinity. With the help of the chaos and spatial divine deity, The lightning divinity's breakthrough was much faster than the spatial divine deity. In less than 300 years, the lightning divinity successfully broke through and reached the heavenly venerable realm. 1,000 years had already passed. Murong didn't care about raising the lightning divinity to the peak of the heavenly venerable realm. He immediately left the chaos secret plane. The four deans were still in seclusion and didn't make any movements. They are probably still chasing after Lu Haotsong. Murong sneered in his heart. Because they weren't sure about Lu Haotsong's identity, they probably wouldn't start a war. In order to confirm this point, Murong sneaked into the demon race alone and secretly met with Nye Tianyang. The Celestial Palace Master was also in seclusion and hadn't come out. This was definitely a good thing for Murong and the entire realm of gods. However, he still didn't find anything about the entrance to the desolate world on the other continents. It seemed that only the entrance to the desolate world had been discovered. Since there was nothing else to do, Murong made the best use of his time and entered the Chaos Secret Plane again to continue raising the Lightning Divinity's level. During this process, Murong energy clone was also constantly comprehending the 7th level of the Chaotic Celestial Record. However, even though his comprehension ability had been raised many times, he still didn't gain anything after so many years. However, Murong was still comprehending. If all cultivation techniques could be comprehended like this, then everyone would be a sage. Moreover, Murong had a feeling. Did the 7th level of the chaotic celestial record correspond to the sage realm? After all, when he was a quasi-god, the chaotic celestial record didn't reach a higher level and was still in the heavenly venerable realm. Time passed slowly, and another few hundred years passed. The four deans and the palace master of the celestial palace still hadn't come out of seclusion. The human clan and the demon clan were still in a state of armistice. However, what Murong didn't know was that someone had started to come out of the eastern wilderness. Although there was only one person, it meant that other than Murong, others could enter and leave. This was because the person who came out had also entered from the realm of gods. He was a powerful demon clan expert, a powerful quasi-saint who was born with wings and could fly. After this person came out, he shocked the entire realm of gods. As a result, more people entered the desolate world, especially those demon clan experts who had wings and birds. However, how could it be so easy to come out? On this day, Lu Haotsong was sitting cross-legged in the main hall, resting with his eyes closed. Suddenly, a long roar like a dragon's roar came from the depths of the Chaos Secret Plane. Lu Haotsong's expression changed. He was shocked again. This was because he knew that Murong had broken through again. Before the long roar ended, a burst of hearty laughter came from Lu Haotsong's main hall. In the next moment, Murong's voice appeared in Lu Haotsong's sight. All three of your godheads have reached the peak of the heavenly venerable realm, right? Lu Haotsong said expressionlessly. Thanks to you, all of them have reached the peak. Murong laughed, unable to hide the excitement on his face. Lu Haotsong, on the other hand, felt depressed. This guy was getting stronger and stronger. It wouldn't be long before he caught up with him, or even surpassed him. How could he endure this? Old Lu, don't be so angry. You're an undead realm expert, and I'm not even a quasi-saint. Give me the primal chaos divine veins. Before Murong went into seclusion, he had asked Lu Haotsong to collect some primal chaos divine veins when he had nothing to do. Because the long-term burning of the primal chaos divine veins in the Hichu Luoshu world accelerated, the primal chaos divine veins were almost exhausted. Lu Haotsong continued to throw a storage ring to Murong expressionlessly. Murong took the storage ring and threw it into the Hichu Luoshu world without looking at it. Just as he was about to thank Lu Haotsong, the Chaos Secret Plane shook violently with a boom. Boom! Lu Haotsong's main hall almost collapsed from the impact. Even Murong, who had been caught unprepared, was shaken to the point that he nearly fell to the ground. What's the situation? Is the Chaos Secret Plane about to collapse? Immediately, this thought appeared in the minds of Murong and Lu Haotsong. Lu Haozong's incomparably huge divine sense extended out in an instant. Once the chaos secret plane collapsed, he could only re-enter the holy world. At that time, he could only continue to be hunted endlessly. Therefore, he was thousands of times more nervous than Morongyu. Chapter 1159. Lu Haozong was an imperishable stage super expert, and his divine sense was enormous, but he couldn't cover the entire place. However, his divine sense was also enormous, and it covered a large area in an instant. However, he didn't find anything out of the ordinary. Whoosh! Lu Haozong's face darkened, and he stepped out, disappearing from the hall. At the same time, Morongyu also rushed out of the chaotic secret zone. He spread his angelic wings and flew in the opposite direction of Lu Haozong. Whoosh! 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 Morongyu and Lu Haozong were extremely fast, and they quickly checked a part of the chaotic secret zone. They could only check a part of it. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to complete the inspection. They didn't find anything out of the ordinary. In fact, what Morongyu and Lu Haozong didn't know was that the chaotic secret zone wasn't the only place that shook. The entire God Realm, and even all the secret zones and secret realms connected to the God Realm, shook violently. The entire God Realm shook violently, as if someone had stomped on the God Realm. However, even ordinary saints didn't have such terrifying strength. So what happened in the God Realm? Was the saint world going to destroy the God Realm? Or was the desolate resurrected? In fact, although the entire God Realm and various secret zones shook violently, it was far less than the Eastern Wilderness. In that instant, it was as if the entire Eastern Wilderness was about to fall apart. The terrifying tremors even caused countless mountains in the eastern wasteland to collapse from the tremors. Mountains collapsed, rivers shifted, the earth sank, and oceans rose. In an instant, the entire eastern wilderness changed greatly. The sudden outbreak of this kind of calamity was similar to a natural disaster. Even though everyone in the eastern wilderness was an expert, many people were still killed by these calamities. Facing some calamities, even gods couldn't completely avoid them. After all, gods weren't immortal. A terrifying, murderous aura emanated from the depths of the eastern wilderness. In less than a few breaths' time, the entire eastern wilderness and the sky above it were shrouded in a dense, murderous aura. Immediately, those who were not strong enough were attacked by the baleful aura. Either they would explode and die, or they would be invaded to the point where they would lose their rationality and become a monster that only knew how to kill. What's the situation? Could it be that Huang has revived? The entire eastern wilderness fell into a state of panic at that moment. Meanwhile, the expressions of the experts who knew about this changed, all of them thinking that Huang had revived. Once the Eastern Barren Territory was revived, all of them who were in the Eastern Barren Territory would die. For a moment, many people were so frightened that they were sent back to the other continents from the Eastern Wasteland. At the same time, somewhere in the Saints' world, within the territory of humans, the vitality of the Eastern Wilderness is gone. The Eastern Barren Territory is completely dead. In a palace, several saints looked at each other. There was an array formation in the hall. Usually, they used this array formation to monitor the Eastern Wasteland and detect the vitality of the Eastern Wasteland. But just now, they could no longer detect the vitality of the Eastern Wilderness. In other words, the Eastern Barren Territory was already dead. Could it be that the Eastern Wasteland was really annihilated by those ants from the divine world? The people in the hall looked at each other and saw the disbelief on each other's faces. Quick, hurry up and report this. After a while, they reacted and rushed out of the hall. After the humans in the Saints' world realized that the vitality of the Eastern Wilderness was gone, the demons in the Saints' world also realized it. Bastard! Damned ant! A demon race sage roared in anger, his killing intent surging. The experts from both the human and demon races gathered. After tens of thousands of years of war, the vitality of the Eastern Wilderness has obviously started to improve. After a period of time, it should be able to revive. But what happened recently? Why did the eastern wilderness suddenly lose its vitality? Could it really have been killed by those ants from the divine world? A human expert said in a deep voice. His voice was filled with rage and killing intent. I don't think so. Although the eastern wilderness hasn't been revived, how could those ants from the divine world destroy its vitality? A demon expert said in a deep voice. Maybe there's something wrong with our surveillance. The eastern wilderness is the most suitable wilderness for revival. We can't fail. If we fail, then we'll slaughter the entire divine world. A human expert said indifferently. To them, the people from the divine world were just ants. If they died, then so be it, because the divine world had nothing to do with them. The only thing that was related to them was the saint world. However, in the saint world, the humans and demons were suppressed by the saints. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were struggling at death's door. The two races were no match for the saints. Therefore, they wanted to revive the eastern wilderness. They wanted to use the eastern wilderness to deal a heavy blow to the saints and even destroy them. Therefore, they had to revive the eastern wilderness. No one could stop them. Could it be that the saints did something? If we can descend, they should be able to do it too. An expert suddenly said, "It's possible. Who is that saint in the lower world? Have you found out?" Both sides fell silent. Clearly, there was no news about Lu Haotsong. The five of you go to the divine world as soon as possible and find out what's going on. What did the Morong's pavilion swallow to make him feel intimate with the desolate world? What did he swallow to make such a heaven and earth anomaly appear in the eastern wilderness? Could it be the remnant soul of the eastern wilderness? Morong did not know what it was, so he was a little worried. After all, if there were any future troubles, it would be detrimental to the Morong's pavilion. However, things had already come to this point. He could not see the Morong's pavilion, so he could not help at all. Everything could only depend on the Morong's pavilion. Little Yin, tell your brother not to let anyone discover him when he comes out. Also, don't let a third person know that he received the inheritance. Morong said in a deep voice. He knew that the heaven and earth anomaly in the eastern wilderness would definitely attract the attention of the people in the holy world. What Morong did not know was that the vitality of the eastern wilderness was gone. This was not as simple as attracting attention. The experts in the divine world were already filled with killing intent. If they knew that the Morong's pavilion was related to this matter, they would definitely make a move. At that time, Morong's pavilion would definitely die. After Morong Yin sent the voice transmission to the Morong's pavilion, Morong Yu and Morong left the desolate world again and returned to the holy city in the eastern wilderness. Morong Yu, the four great deans are looking for you. As soon as he appeared, Xiang Sungwu came out with an anxious expression. They must have been waiting for Morong Yu in the holy city. Morong Yu, has the eastern wilderness been killed? Xiang Sungwu approached and asked in a low voice. Morong Yu shook his head. He did not even make a move. How could the eastern wilderness be killed? Could it be that the eastern wilderness has been resurrected? Xiang Sungwu's expression instantly became ugly. If that was really the case, it would be a disaster for the divine world. It shouldn't be, right? I'll make a trip there first. Morong Yu immediately became depressed. He just remembered that he had forgotten to take a look at the desolate's heart. At least he would know if the desolate was dead or slowly being resurrected. However, there was no time for him to enter the desolate world again. The four great deans were looking for him. The holy world must have noticed this matter. Could something have happened to the resurrection of the eastern wilderness? Otherwise, the four great deans would not appear again. Morong Yu sneered. With a flash, he appeared in the main hall of the desolate city. Chapter 1160. Morong Yu, do you have anything to do with the phenomenon in the divine world and the great changes in the eastern wilderness? As soon as Morong Yu entered the hall, Man Jiu suddenly shouted. However, he didn't release a powerful aura to suppress Morong Yu this time. They all knew that the aura couldn't suppress Morong Yu unless they released the power of a saint. However, once they released the power of a saint, they would be pulled back to the holy world. These people were only quasi-saint. If they were pulled back, they wouldn't be able to enter the holy world. He was afraid that he would be crushed in the process of pulling, even if they weren't pulled back to the holy world. However, Morongyu had a high-level saint behind him. If they dared to kill Morongyu, there was no guarantee that the high-level sage behind Morongyu wouldn't take action. By then, they would be killed before they could even attack Morongyu. They didn't care if Hong and the others died. After all, they were just puppets. However, once Hong and the others died, they wouldn't be able to control the divine world. If they wanted to control the divine world again, they would have to control others. However, would Morongyu give them time? They didn't have time to waste. Hearing that, Morongyu sneered in his heart. It really has something to do with the eastern wilderness. While he sneered in his heart, a cold smile appeared on his face. You four think too highly of me. Do you think I'm a saint? As he spoke, Morongyu sat down and looked at Hong and the others indifferently. Morongyu, don't talk nonsense. I know these phenomena are related to you. Didn't you, the Alliance Master, want to slay desolation? Could it be that you killed the Eastern Wasteland? A cold light flashed across Hong's eyes. Morongyu, that little ant, was prancing around in front of him, which made him extremely unhappy. If it wasn't for the saint behind him, he would have killed him with a slap. A shocked expression appeared on Morongyu's face. Don't tell me you think I killed Huang. I, on the other hand, wish to kill Huang. Otherwise, our god realm will have to bear the consequences. As he spoke, Morongyu's heart was filled with joy. From Hong's words, he came to a conclusion. Huang died. Otherwise, why would Hong ask that question? This is a good thing. It is definitely worth celebrating. Morongyu was about to burst into laughter. At the same time, he began to suspect that the being that Murong Xian had refined was the remnant soul of the eastern wilderness. If that was the case, then Easter Barren territory had been killed by Murong Xian. Hong and the other three's faces were extremely ugly. Ever since they discovered that Desolation's vitality was gone, they immediately checked those formations. After checking it over and over again, they were certain that there were no problems with the arrays. Moreover, Morongyu hadn't made any big moves recently. They all believed in their ability to gather information, because those top-notch experts in the God realm didn't have any abnormalities. In other words, they did not participate in the desolation operation with Morongyu. However, their intuition told them that Eastern Wilderness's death definitely had something to do with Morongyu. Let's just capture him and read his memories. Heaven's voice rang out in their ears. His voice was as cold as ice that had been frozen for 10,000 years. No, he has a saint behind him. Who knows, that saint might have left something on him. Big immediately rejected Heaven's idea. Doesn't he have Shenzhen? Moreover, this little bastard is very loyal. We just need to capture Shenzhen or a few of his relatives. Hee. Man chuckled coldly, his eyes flashing coldly as he looked at Morongyu. At this moment, all the hairs on Morongyu's body stood on end, and an intense aura of danger enveloped his heart. This bastard isn't thinking of attacking me, right? Morongyu grew wary and raised his state to the limit. He had even secretly brought out the Hichu Luoshu and the Yinyang Cauldron to guard against a sneak attack from Hong's group of four. Hong's group of four thought that Lu Haotsong had left something on Morongyu's body. Only Morongyu knew that Lu Haotsong had no tricks at all. He didn't even have a strand of divine sense. In his words, he couldn't be bothered to waste that energy. In any case, Morongyu was so powerful that he was invincible. Lu Haotsong had probably been dealt a heavy blow, which was why he said such sour words. Morongyu is a loyal and righteous person. If we touch his people, he'll definitely retaliate crazily. Now is not the time to completely fall out with him. Let's first investigate whether or not Eastern Wilderness is truly dead, Hong slowly said after a moment of thought. Hong glanced at Morongyu and said indifferently, "It's fine now. You can leave." Morongyu's heart exploded with rage. Who did these four bastards think they were? That they could order him to come and go as they pleased? Who was Morongyu? Just as Morongyu was about to explode, Big Man said indifferently, "Investigate the heaven and earth anomaly for me and report back in a few days." Was he treating Morongyu as a slave? Or perhaps he was already treating Morongyu as a puppet? Murong Yu's eyes flashed with a terrifying killing intent. He slowly stood up and glanced at the four of them. Then, he sneered and said, "Guys, I'm very busy. If it's still such trivial matters in the future, don't bother me. Also, use your brain more in the future. If I were you, I wouldn't suspect that I had anything to do with the heaven and earth anomaly." Before he finished speaking, Murong Yu's body flashed and quickly disappeared from the hall. Arrogant. Man slapped the table in front of him into powder. He suddenly stood up from his chair. His face was full of anger. A terrifying, murderous aura burst out and instantly filled the entire hall. Suddenly, the entire main hall seemed to have been sealed by ice that had been frozen for 10,000 years, sinking to the bottom. "One day, I'll kill him myself," Big Man said with a strong, killing intent. Murong Yu was really arrogant. How could an ant be so arrogant? He really deserved to die. Little did they know that when they wanted to kill Murong Yu, they had already been written into Murong Yu's kill list. It was just that the time was not right. If the Desolate is really dead, they will definitely open up a second battlefield. If the Eastern Wasteland can be resurrected, then the other Desolates can also be resurrected. After leaving the hall, Murong Yu furrowed his brows. Killing the Desolate was just a temporary solution. If he wanted to cut off the Saints' thoughts, the only way was to fight them directly. However, there were not many 10th level quasi-saint in the God world now. There was no way they could fight against the humans and demons of the holy world. I'd better raise my cultivation level to the quasi-saint level as soon as possible and subdue the super experts of the heaven domain as soon as possible. Otherwise, the God world will still be at the mercy of others. Murong Yu sighed and looked worried. If the saints wanted to descend, they would definitely seal their strength and suppress it to the 10th level quasi-saint level. If there was such an army, the people of the God world would only be slaughtered. But how should he raise his cultivation level to the quasi-saint level? Murong Yu was not sure about this, because his strength clone was constantly comprehending the 7th level of the chaotic heavenly records, but there was no breakthrough. Quasi-saint level is between God and saint. It's a transitional stage to become a saint. Just like immortals, some people don't even need to reach the quasi-God level to ascend. God should be the same. However, there's a huge difference in strength between a peak heavenly venerable and a 10th level quasi-saint ascending. Hichu, who had not spoken for a long time, once again explained Murong Yu's doubts. Actually, it was not really a solution. It was as if he had not said anything. Do I want to be like a quasi-god and use my strength to increase my cultivation level? Murong Yu pondered. Then, his figure flashed and entered the Hichu Luo Shu. He was ready to forcefully break through. Once he broke through to the quasi-saint level, he would be able to control the heaven domain. You have the blood crystal flower and the undying blood soul. These contain some of the cultivation methods of famine. After you refine them, you might be able to reach the quasi-saint level. In an instant, Murong Yu remembered that he seemed to have these two treasures that could make someone a saint. Moreover, he also had a few path understanding fruits. How could I forget these things? Murong Yu slapped his forehead, a little depressed. Before entering the chaotic secret zone, Murong Yu appeared outside the water platform's secret realm again with Murong Yin. Little Yin, what's the situation with Little Xian now? Brother's situation is very stable now, and his vitality is stronger than before. I feel that his strength has reached the level of a quasi-saint, or even a high-level quasi-saint, Murong Yin said excitedly after sensing for a moment. A smile also appeared on Murong Yu's face. Who wouldn't want their children to become stronger? Little Yin, you're here? I can leave soon. Sensing Murong Yan's arrival, Murong Xian immediately transmitted his voice. By the way, you don't have to come often. Once I leave here, I have a way to leave the desolate world. Murong Yu was relieved. So, he left the desolate world and returned to the chaotic secret zone. The blood crystal flower. Murong Yu decided to refine the blood crystal flower. At the same time, he also absorbed the power of chaos in an attempt to forcefully break through. Good stuff. If you swallow these things, you can refine the insights of the saints contained in them and turn them into your own insights. It's much better than just comprehending other things. Lu Haozong suddenly appeared beside Murong Yu and said with a surprised expression, comprehending was just using the insights and experiences of others to break through. However, the blood crystal flower directly became one's own. There was no need to comprehend it at all. However, these should be obtained in the desolate world, right? If they were refined by the desolate world, the effects would be much better than if you refined them, Lu Haozong continued. Murong Yu's heart skipped a beat. Then, he put the blood crystal flower into the Hichu Luoshu world. Didn't Murong Xian accept the inheritance of the eastern wilderness? If he gave the blood crystal flower and the undying blood soul to Murong Xian, they would complement each other. Old Lu, do you have other things to say? Lu Haozong nodded and said with a serious expression, someone is coming down from above. Chapter 1161. There were saints coming down from the holy world. This time, they didn't just control the gods. They came down in person. Murong Yu's face darkened. He didn't ask how Lu Haozong found out. As an imperishable stage saint, Lu Haozong had many ways to find out. He was more concerned about why these people came down. Did the holy world do something new again? How many people came down? Murong Yu's face darkened. His voice was as cold as ice. There are dozens of them on the human side, and dozens of them on the demon side. These people aren't very strong. They should be saints. In the divine world, their cultivation level is suppressed to level 10 quasi-saint. Hundreds of quasi-saints came down to the divine world at the same time. One had to know that in the saint world, the human race and the demon race were on the same side. If these people were to make a move against Murong Yu and the others, even if they suppressed their cultivation level to level 10 quasi-saints, they were still saints. However, their physical bodies were saint bodies. Although their power was suppressed, their physical bodies were still extremely powerful, even if they had no power. After all, the strongest physical body of a god was only at the peak of the saint grade. There was a huge gap between it and a saint grade body. Murong Yu wasn't confident that he could destroy the physical bodies of those saints. I'll go back first. Murong Yu's face darkened. He felt very miserable. He couldn't even cultivate in peace. There were always so many things that didn't go his way. Murong Yu stepped out of Hichu Luoshu and appeared in the holy city. His face darkened immediately. Unlike the prosperous holy city, there was no one else in the holy city except for Shengzhen's disciples. Shengzhen's disciples were also very busy. They seemed to be packing their things. Murong Yu's eyes narrowed slightly as he released his powerful divine sense. Then he saw that many cities were like the holy city. There were even more people who had entered the teleportation formation and left the eastern wilderness. Holy Master, Murong Yu walked into the sacred palace, and when Ling and the rest hurriedly came in to explain what had happened. What? The human race and the beast race have all left the eastern wilderness? Murong Yu squinted his eyes. A cold, murderous intent flashed across his eyes. He was an ally of the human race. Who dared to withdraw without his permission? Other than those sages, no one else in the god realm dared to do this. However, these sages were bold and reckless. They did not know Murong Yu at all and directly withdrew their troops. When Murong Yu learned about this, most of the human and demon armies in the East Wasteland had already evacuated. The Eastern Barren Territory should be dead already. Their army should have retreated. He must have gone to another continent to start a war. Murong Yu thought to himself with a gloomy face. However, Murong Yu didn't know which continent they were going to fight in. If that was the case, it would be a tragedy for Murong Yu to stop Desolation's revival. Seeing that Murong Yu was deep in thought, when Ling did not disturb him. After a long while, she asked, Holy Master, what should we do? Let's retreat to the holy mountain first. Murong Yu immediately made a decision. Now that everyone had retreated, what was the point of Shengzhen staying here alone? Wen Ling immediately retreated. In the Antiquity City, Hong and the other three, as well as dozens of rank 10 quasi-saint, gathered here. These rank 10 quasi-saint were all newcomers. This time, They came down with a mission. Everyone, are your surveillance formations ready? Han glanced at the dozens of people and asked calmly. The Yang Wilderness Continent is similar to the Eastern Wilderness Continent. When they were alive, their strength should be similar to the Eastern Wilderness. Moreover, they still have vitality. They should be able to revive. An expert stood up and said calmly. However, Yang Desolation Continent is the same as Eastern Desolation Continent. It's extremely far away from the 4 continents of the human race and the Demon Desolation Continent. Ordinary people can't go there at all. We need to build a teleportation formation between the continents as soon as possible so that they can start the war in Yang Desolation Continent as soon as possible. This person sneered, his eyes indifferent. If Eastern Desolation didn't suddenly die, we wouldn't need to move our base at all. We also wouldn't need to personally come down to set up the formation. Another expert said coldly, his eyes flashing with a terrifying cold light. This time, we need to increase all kinds of resources to attract more people. We need to revive Yang Desolation as soon as possible. Heaven said slowly, how should we deal with that Morongyu? I'm afraid that he'll cause trouble this time. Someone suddenly asked. Although they hadn't been in the lower realm for long, they already knew Murongyu's name. This was because Murongyu had a saint behind him. Moreover, he wanted to kill Desolation. He had long been noticed by the higher-ups. Moreover, they now suspected that Murongyu was the one who killed Eastern Desolation Continent. Of course, Murongyu himself didn't have that kind of strength. But don't forget that there was a saint behind him. A high-level saint could easily kill Eastern Desolation Continent before it was revived. Kill him. With the strength of your physical bodies, you should be able to kill him. Hang's eyes flashed with killing intent. The reason why they didn't make a move before was because they didn't know the saint behind Murongyu, and they were afraid of death. Of course, their original bodies were in the saint's world. They also believed that Lu Haotsong couldn't do anything to their original bodies. But if their puppets were killed, it would be troublesome. They would need to control another puppet. However, other than the 4 deans, who else in the human race had their prestige? Even if they could control others, they couldn't control the human race. That was why they had that kind of estimation. But weren't there still saints from the lower realm? They could easily kill Murongyu. Even if they were killed by the saints, it would have nothing to do with Hong and the others. I'll go kill him now. An expert suddenly stood up. His body flickered, and he was about to leave the hall to kill Murongyu. Wait. Set up the teleportation array in the Sun Wilderness Continent first. We can't delay the important matter. Hong immediately stopped the expert. While many saints were plotting to kill Murongyu, Murongyu was still in the East Desolation Continent Saint City. There were thousands of people in the hall. They were all peak saint heavenly sovereigns from a desolation world. If I'm not wrong, Eastern Desolation Continent is already dead. That means the threat of the desolation world is temporarily removed. Murongyu looked at everyone and said calmly. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Although they were in the God's world, their foundation was in the desolation world. If the desolation world collapsed, they would be alone. The people above must be trying to revive Desolation Heart. Eastern Desolation Continent is completely dead, but they will revive a second desolation. If desolation revives, our world will still be in danger. Dijingye said in a deep voice. Everyone who had just heaved a sigh of relief became nervous again. Murongyu nodded. Therefore, I've decided to go against the people above. As for you, if you want to fight alongside me, I welcome you. If you don't want to, I won't force you. That's right. Murongyu is ready to fight the saints. Otherwise, how could he kill Desolation? Eastern Desolation Continent's death could only be considered an accident. If they wanted to revive a second desolation, Murongyu didn't have the ability to kill it. The entire God's world didn't have the ability. Once desolation revives, the entire God's world will be in trouble. It might even be destroyed. At that time, we will also die. Why don't we fight them directly? Dijingye's eyes flickered. He had already decided to continue cooperating with Murongyu. It doesn't matter even if we die. At least we can still protect our world. We would die sooner or later anyway. It's just a matter of time. If we can kill a saint, even if we die, it won't be a loss. Another super expert yelled. For a moment, many people decided to continue cooperating with Morongyu. However, some people left the sacred palace. These people weren't as selfless as Morongyu and the others. They were all afraid of death and didn't dare to fight against the people of the god's world. What else could they do other than despise such people? Soon, Morongyu, Dijongye, and the others returned to the sacred mountain. In the sacred mountain, even people from the saint's world couldn't forcefully attack it, unless they unleashed the might of saint. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do anything to Shenzhen. In the next few days, Morongyu entered the desolate world again. However, Morongxian's inheritance wasn't completed yet. At this time, an order from the four deans was passed down to the human continent of the god's world. The general meaning was the demon race was too arrogant. They wanted to destroy them. Therefore, the demon race must be wiped out from the god's world. However, due to the changes in the eastern desolate world, they opened up a second battlefield, the Yang desolate world. When the humans issued this order, the demon race also issued the same order. However, it was to exterminate the human race. Unlike the previous time when resources were added to the battlefield, this time, the Yang desolate world was forcefully conscripted. Every human continent and every force had to participate. They had to eliminate the other side in the shortest time possible. Moreover, the military contribution reward this time was even more tempting than before. This time, there would be saints from the lower realm imparting their techniques and helping them to ascend to the saint realm as soon as possible. Of course, this was only for the people with the most outstanding military contributions. Moreover, those saints who ascended would appear in the human or demon race's territory. They would erupt with boundless saint aura, telling the gods that they were indeed saints from above. They would help the humans and demon race obtain victory, unifying the god's world. Because of this, the humans and demon race in the god's world went crazy. One by one, they rushed into the Yang desolate world. The war broke out again, and it was even more bloody and brutal than before. This was because everyone wanted to obtain military contributions and gain the favor of the saints so that they could ascend to the saint realm as soon as possible. Moreover, in order to mobilize everyone to participate in the war, these saints even displayed their saint aura in different continents. They set up transportation arrays and directly teleported to the Yang desolate world. Chapter 1162. Morongyu and Shenzhen didn't move when a large number of people rushed into the battlefield. Even the forces that were on good terms with Morongyu didn't move, such as the Fan family. These people all knew that the higher-ups wanted to revive Huang. Naturally, they wouldn't lend them a hand. On the contrary, they wanted nothing more than to stop all of this. But how could they have that ability? When those people displayed their saints' might and took out the incomparably tempting reward, the people of the God realm seemed to have gone crazy. They could restrain their own forces, but other forces couldn't. Even Morongyu, the so-called alliance master, was the same. Because even though many people knew that the higher-ups wanted to revive Huang, they still resolutely rushed into the Yang Huang world. After all, they all wanted to become saints. But how could it be so easy to become a saint? Moreover, the higher-ups only saw the people of the God realm as ants. What reward would there be? Those who were on good terms with Morongyu were all experts and superforces. Therefore, a strange scene appeared on the side of the human race. When many people rushed into the Yang Huang world, they didn't make a move. It was very conspicuous. This is too presumptuous. As expected, Morongyu jumped out to cause trouble again. Since that's the case, let's kill him first. Those saints were finally angry. Morongyu, get out here. On this day, a thunderous voice suddenly exploded outside the holy mountain, rushing straight into the holy mountain like a torrent. Immediately, the surface of the sacred mountain erupted with blinding divine light. Some of the sacred mountain's defensive formations were automatically activated. One could imagine how terrifying the power of this voice was. But even if the formation's power was activated and protected the entire sacred mountain, but this voice still rushed into the sacred mountain. Immediately, some of the weaker disciples were hit by the impact and spat out blood. Some of the buildings were also destroyed. "You're courting death." Shangzhen and hundreds of 10th Order Quasi-Saint roared. At the same time, he burst out with the power of a peak 10th Order Quasi-Saint, and at the same time, shattered the voice that rushed in. After Murong Yu's 3 godheads reached the peak of Heavenly Venerable, he once again entered the Heaven Domain. More and more Quasi-Saints were under his control. There were now 110th stage Quasi-Saints under his control. As for the other ranks of Quasi-Saint, there were more than 1,000 of them. Disregarding those sages, Shangzhen was undoubtedly the #1 power in the God realm. However, Shangzhen's strength was not good enough in the face of those saints from the lower realm. "Who's making a ruckus here?" A 10th Order Quasi-Saint turned into a stream of light and rushed out of the holy mountain. At the same time, the other Class 10 Quasi-Saint also rushed out. Looking from afar, there was a group of several dozen people standing in the sky in front of the sacred mountain. Their eyes were filled with disdain as they looked arrogantly at the powerhouses who had rushed out from the sacred mountain. These people were the human race's saints from the lower realm. At this moment, all of them had appeared outside of Shangzhen. Were they going to attack Morongyu? 10th Order Quasi-Saint, TSK, an ant-like existence dares to speak to me like this? You should open your mouth. The saint took a step forward and said indifferently. Then, the Quasi-Saint on Shangzhen's side saw the other party's figure flicker and disappear on the spot. The Quasi-Saint who had spoken to Shangzhen earlier sneered in his heart. Both of them were 10th Order Quasi-Saint. Would he really slap himself? If he dares to appear here, I'll kill him directly. The Quasi-Saint sneered in his heart, thinking of a way to kill the other party. However, at this moment, an extremely strong aura of death enveloped his heart in an instant. In an instant, he was shocked. Immediately, he wanted to retreat. However, at this moment, an unparalleled saint's aura suddenly descended and drowned him. At this moment, the Quasi-Saint was shocked to find that his strength had been sealed. To be precise, it was not sealed, but in this instant his strength and physical body were suppressed. A large hand suddenly tore through the void, as if it had reached out from ancient times. With a smack, it directly hit the Quasi-Saint's body. Poof! Half of the Quasi-Saint's face was smashed, revealing his white bones. His entire body was sent flying by the force of the blow. An ant-like thing dares to be so arrogant? You don't know what you're talking about. A figure appeared at the spot where the 10th level Quasi-Saint had been standing and sneered. The Quasi-Saint on Shangzhen's side was stunned. Both of them were 10th Order Quasi-Saint, but why were the other party's speed and strength so strong? Whoosh! Before the people on Shangzhen's side could react, the saint who attacked had already retreated. Do you know what an ant is? You're all ants. You can't even withstand a single blow. The saint laughed out loud, his voice full of disdain. The people on Shangzhen's side were enraged. Each of them looked at the dozens of saints with murderous intent. Oh, how dare ants show their killing intent to us? They're simply courting death. Why don't we just kill all of them? The saint who attacked earlier said with disdain. His tone was relaxed, as if the target they wanted to kill was not a 10th Order Quasi-Saint, but a real ant. Smack! Just as this person finished speaking, a sound louder and clearer than the one he whipped Shangzhen's powerhouse came from his body. Suddenly, everyone saw a figure suddenly appear beside him, and a slap landed on his face, sending him flying like a broken rag doll. In the holy world, you're just the trashiest saints. In the divine world, you're still trash. A voice was heard, reverberating throughout the area. At the same time, the figure who slapped the saint quickly retreated. This time, it was the saint's turn to be shocked. Their powers were suppressed and sealed, and they only had the power of a 10th Order Quasi-Saint. However, whether it was in terms of strength or physical strength, they were much stronger than a 10th Order Quasi-Saint. Most importantly, their perception was much stronger than a 10th Order Quasi-Saint. However, before this, they did not notice that someone was hiding near them. It was only when the saint was sent flying that they realized. The Holy Lord is mighty. The Holy Lord is invincible. While the saints were shocked, Shangzhen's side had already started cheering. This was because the person who attacked was Shangzhen's sect leader, Morongyu. Saints only have slightly stronger physical bodies and slightly faster speed. That's all. As long as you don't get hit by their physical strength, they can't do anything to you. Morongyu stood in front of Shangzhen's experts and said calmly. The Shangzhen's quasi-saint nodded slightly, indicating that they had learned something. At the same time, they were secretly ashamed. Morongyu was not even a quasi-saint, but he could send a saint flying with a slap. On the other hand, they were all 10th order quasi-saint, but they were scared out of their wits by the other party's slap. The difference in psychological quality was too great. Moreover, other than the fact that their cultivation level was higher than Morongyu's, they could not compare to Morongyu in any other way. You're Morongyu? You said we're trash? A saint stepped out and looked coldly at Morongyu. An extremely powerful aura burst out like a stormy sea, and the void around him was constantly shattered. Didn't I say it? In the holy realm, you're the trashiest saints. In the god realm, you're still trash. Morongyu said calmly, and a look of disdain flashed across his face. All the saints were furious, and they were all furious. Morongyu's words were like a needle stabbing into their hearts, stabbing into their sore spots. In the god realm, there were too many people with their strength, and they had no status at all. They were like slaves. Even those in the great saint realm could order them around. Therefore, when they came to the lower realm, their suppressed hearts for a long time completely exploded. They saw the people in the god realm as ants, and they wanted to order them around and control the fate of others. However, if they had met others, they might have been able to do so. However, the first time they made a move, they went to Shangzhen and met Morongyu. Morongyu's strength was only at the peak of the heavenly venerable realm. However, he could borrow the strength of other quasi-saints and instantly become a 10th level quasi-saint. In this way, even if there was still a gap in strength between them, it was definitely not that big. In addition, Morongyu could conceal himself. Just now, he had hidden in the void and directly rushed in front of that saint, and then slapped him. His concealment was so good that even these saints from the lower realm could not detect him. Of course, Morongyu was only forced to do so. If it was a head-on battle, he might not be able to defeat these people. Moreover, the super expert on his side could not block a single attack from the other party, and was sent flying with a slap. This not only dealt a blow to the 10th level quasi-saint, but it also dealt a blow to Shangzhen. If Morongyu wanted to restore morale, he had to use the same method. In fact, when Morongyu slapped that saint, Shangzhen's morale had fallen even more than before. This was because Morongyu had neglected one thing. He was only a heavenly venerable. A celestial venerable had slapped a saint and sent him flying? This was definitely the first time in history. One could imagine that if news of this were spread, Morongyu would definitely shock the entire god realm. It was even possible that his name would spread throughout the holy world. The great sect leader Shangzhen can only rely on analysis. You only have such despicable methods. If you have the ability, fight with me. The saint looked coldly at Morongyu, trying to provoke him. Hearing this, Shangzhen and the others laughed. A saint challenging a heavenly venerable? A saint calling a heavenly venerable despicable? Was this not a joke? However, Morongyu's brows were slightly wrinkled. If it was a big battle, he was not confident that he could kill them. In fact, he was not confident that he would not lose. There is no need for the Holy Lord to make a move. I can kill all of you alone. Just as Shangzhen and the others were laughing and Morongyu was frowning, a loud shout came from afar. Chapter 1163. Just as the voice was heard, a figure came from the distant horizon. His clothes fluttered in the wind, and his aura surged. With one step, he traversed countless dimensions, as if he had stepped out of the void from ancient times. He was like a god of war. The person was extremely fast and it didn't take long for him to arrive in front of the sacred mountain, in front of Morong Yu. Father. The person stood in front of Morong Yu and bowed respectfully to Morong Yu. Who else could it be but Morong Xian? Morong Yu nodded and looked at Morong Xian with a surprised expression. Morong Xian was very powerful. His physical body was already at the peak of the saint level, just like his. What shocked Morong Yu the most was that his cultivation had also risen to the 10th order quasi-saint realm, surpassing Morong Yu in all aspects. Not bad, not bad. Morong Yu nodded with satisfaction. Morong Xian's realm had surpassed his, so of course Morong Yu was happy. It would be best if he could become a saint in one go. While Morong Yu was looking at Morong Xian in surprise, Shengzhen and the others were also looking at Morong Xian in shock. Those who hadn't seen Morong Xian before were fine, but people like Wen Ling and the others were really shocked. Could it be that Morong Xian's talent is even more terrifying than the sacred leaders? What kind of fortuitous encounter did he have? He actually rose from the heavenly venerate to the 10th order quasi-saint realm in just over 10,000 years. His physical body is too strong. It should be similar to the sacred leaders, right? Everyone's eyes were focused on Morong Xian, including the saints. However, unlike Shengzhen and the others, the saints only looked at Morong Xian with disdain and contempt. Father, wait for me to kill them. Feeling the saints' gazes, Morong Xian sneered in his heart. Little Xian, do you really have the ability? Don't try to be brave. Morong Yu's first reaction was not to stop Morong's pavilion, but to ask if he had the ability. As parents, it was not their duty to protect their children behind their backs. Instead, he had to give them a stage and let them express themselves freely. As for Morong Yu, he only needed to act as a backstage support. Father, don't worry. I was just about to test out what I had learned over the years. Wasn't he just a saint? I'll kill them all, Morong Xian said confidently. Morong Yu nodded. It's best to be careful. The reason why Morong Yu gave the Morong Pavilion was not only because he believed that the Morong Pavilion would not act recklessly, but also because he was here. With him here, no matter how strong those saints were, they would not be able to kill Morong Xian. Hearing Morong Yu and his son's words, no one on Shengzhen's side said anything. They just looked at the two of them. However, the saints' eyes were spitting fire. They wanted nothing more than to rush up and kill Morong Yu and the others with a single slap. Come here and accept your death. Morong Xian's gaze slowly swept across Shengzhen's people, then turned around and came in front of the saint. He looked at the other party and said indifferently. The saint's lungs were about to explode from anger. Morong Yu was already arrogant enough, but his son was even more arrogant. A mere ant dared to be arrogant in front of them? He was simply courting death. Little ant, little bastard, make your move. I'll let you make 3 moves. The saint was furious. He wanted nothing more than to kill Morong Xian with one punch. However, he still maintained his superior demeanor and let Morong Xian make 3 moves. Is that so? Morong Xian smiled and took a step forward. With a swoosh, he disappeared on the spot. The moment Morong Xian disappeared, the saint on the opposite side was suddenly enveloped by an extremely strong sense of danger. Immediately, he was shocked. Then he sneered. He didn't take it seriously. After all, he was a saint. He was confident that Morong Xian couldn't kill him. However, his body still swayed, and he was about to retreat. He said that he would let Morong Xian make 3 moves, but he didn't say that he would take Morong Xian's 3 moves head-on. Swoosh! The moment his body moved, Morong Xian's figure appeared out of thin air in his path of retreat. At the same time, he directly threw a punch. At this moment, the saint's sense of danger grew even stronger. Moreover, a sense of danger even stronger than the one in his heart broke through the void and rapidly bombarded his body. And he seemed to automatically meet Morong Xian's fist. At this moment, Morong Xian's fist suddenly exploded with a ball of blood-red divine light. When the blood-red divine light exploded, Morong Yu's pupils suddenly shrank in the distance. This was because he was very familiar with that blood-red divine light. It had Desolation's murderous aura, tyrannical and terrifying. Wasn't it the aura of the fresh blood in the blood lake in Desolation's heart? That fresh blood could even annihilate the body of a super expert at the peak of the divine grade in an instant. Although the saint body was many times stronger than the peak of the divine grade, could it resist the invasion of that fresh blood? Murong Yu's eyes flashed with a cold light as he stared at Murong Xian's hand. The result would be out soon. Boom! After an earth-shattering explosion, Murong Xian's body trembled violently, and then he was directly sent flying. A terrifying aura burst out from his body like a turbulent flow, smashing into the void around him and shattering it into pieces. It was a terrifying sight. On the other side, the saint was also sent flying like Murong Xian. However, it was different from Murong Xian, who was only sent flying. The moment the two sides exchanged blows, the divine light that erupted from Murong Xian's hand drowned the saint like a tide. Originally, the saint didn't know how terrifying the blood-red divine light was at all, so he didn't guard against it. Now, he was in a complete tragedy. In an instant, the clothes on his body were shredded. The blood-red divine light quickly strangled his body at a terrifying speed, wanting to invade his body and then directly annihilate it. At this moment, the saint was finally frightened. The attack also stopped. However, Murong Xian took the opportunity to directly punch him. Suddenly, his chest was directly punched by Murong Xian. With a cracking sound, his entire chest caved in. The blood-red divine light also took the opportunity to attack. It quickly looked down on him, and the power that erupted to resist quickly invaded his body. In an instant, he was severely injured, and his entire body was sent flying. The saint roared angrily, and the power in his body erupted wildly, trying to force out the blood-red divine light. However, everyone saw that no matter how much he roared, it was useless. His body was quickly being annihilated at a speed visible to the naked eye. With his chest as the center, it was quickly being annihilated in all directions. Once his soul was annihilated, he would be dead for sure. What a terrifying power! At this moment, everyone looked at Murong Xian in horror. They didn't know how Murong Xian had suddenly become so powerful. He could even severely injure Saint. Could he even kill him? In a few breaths, the saint's body was almost annihilated. Save me. Finally, after using all kinds of methods, he couldn't get rid of the blood-red power and couldn't even stop the blood-red light from destroying his body. He finally panicked and called for help. At this moment, the other saints finally reacted and immediately rushed over. Waves of power instantly annihilated him. However, as soon as their power came into contact with the blood-red divine light, it was quickly annihilated. It was impossible to expel the power. Use your saint's might, or you're dead for sure. A saint roared angrily. Hearing that, the severely injured saint immediately reacted. With a thought, he was about to unleash his saint's might. He wanted to unleash his saint's might to block the blood-red divine light. Although he would definitely be punished if he returned to the saint's world with his tail between his legs, it was better than losing his life. At the same time, the other saints quickly retreated. They didn't want to be captured back to the central region of the saint's world. You want to use your saint's might to expel my power? You underestimate me too much. At this moment, Murong Xian's disdainful voice rang out. At the same time, Murong Xian's figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. Teleport. Murong Yu was shocked. Since when did Murong Xian know how to teleport? Although this kind of teleportation couldn't be compared to his own, it was absolutely terrifying. Boom! At the same time Murong Xian's voice rang out, the saint's heart was once again enveloped by a strong sense of danger. He was instantly horrified and began to unleash his saint's might with all his might. He wanted to undo the seal on his body. However, it was all too late. Murong Xian knew how to teleport and appeared directly in front of him. Then, he directly punched the saint's head. With a boom, the saint's entire head exploded. His soul was directly annihilated. Dead. A saint had fallen. Rumble. The moment the saint fell, blood clouds appeared out of nowhere in the sky. Accompanied by streaks of blood-red lightning, a rain of blood poured down. When a saint fell, heaven and earth mourned. It was just like when the gods and the immortal world fell. Once such a phenomenon appeared, it meant that the saint had completely fallen. Murong Xian had actually killed the saint. That saint had actually been killed by Murong Xian. Shock! Shock! There was nothing but shock. Whoosh! Everyone's gaze gathered on Murong Xian. Murong Xian only smiled faintly and turned to face the dozens of saints. A saint is nothing more than this. My father was right. In the holy world, you are all trash. But in the immortal world, you are also trash. The saints were shocked and furious. But because they weren't sure about Murong Yu, although they wanted to slap Murong Xian to death, they didn't dare to do it. Trash is indeed trash. If you don't dare to do it, then scram. Seeing that they were all looking at him with anger, but no one dared to do anything, Murong Xian couldn't help but sneer. Chapter 11:64. The group of saints looked at each other, but no one dared to make a move. If Murong Xian could kill that saint, he could also kill them. They had no confidence that they could survive. Of course, if they all attacked together and unleashed their power, killing Murong Xian would not be a problem. However, after coming to the god realm, they all considered themselves superior and looked at gods as if they were ants. If they swarmed together to deal with an ant, they would look down on themselves, let alone others looking down on them. Therefore, they would never put down their pride and attack Murong Xian together. Damn it, this little bastard. I'll kill him even if I have to go back to the holy realm. A saint was furious. His figure flashed, and he was about to charge towards Murong Xian. If he unleashed his saint's power, he could definitely kill Murong Xian before he was pulled to the holy realm. Of course, the premise was that Murong Xian did not have any other trump cards. You could try and see if you can kill me. Murong Xian stepped forward and looked at the saint indifferently. He was not afraid at all. His face was full of disdain. All the saints were so angry that their lungs were about to explode. Their killing intent soared into the sky, causing the wind and clouds to change. However, no one dared to make a move. Even the saint who was clamoring to kill Murong Xian was the same. They're just ants. There's no need to bother with them. Come back to Primeval College immediately. At this moment, a calm voice came from afar and resounded between heaven and earth. Murong Yu frowned slightly. He could tell that it was Hong's voice. However, why did Hong ask them to retreat? With their strength, Shang's and Xian's side really could not stop them. Of course, as long as Murong Yu entered the holy mountain, they would not be able to do anything to Shang's and Xian even if they attacked with all their strength. Unless they unleashed their full saint's power. Ants will always be ants. Soon, I will personally kill all of you. A saint left these words behind before turning around and leaving. The other sages also sneered and turned to leave. Trash! I'll be waiting for you in Shenzhen. Remember to send yourself to death as soon as possible. You've only killed a saint. It's really boring. Murong's hearty laughter rang out, but it angered those sages so much that they were trembling all over, their anger soaring to the heavens. On the other hand, Shenzhen's people were overjoyed. A quasi-saint was able to kill a real saint and not a fake one. How powerful was he? The god world was a world where the strong were respected. Since Murong Xian was so powerful, Shenzhen's people were naturally happy for him. Moreover, the Murong Pavilion's power in Shenzhen had skyrocketed, directly surpassing the quasi-saint and almost comparable to Zhao Jiqing. He was the third most prestigious person in Shenzhen. The first was, of course, Murong Yu. No matter how powerful Shenzhen's experts were, no one could replace Murong Yu. This was because the majority of Shenzhen's disciples came from a mortal world and a mortal world. They followed Murong Yu all the way here. Their loyalty to Murong Yu was as solid as a rock, indestructible. Wenling, I need you to handle this matter well. After returning to the sacred mountain, Murong Yu instructed Wenling. Wenling nodded and immediately went to handle this matter. Under Wenling's operation, the news of Murong Pavilion killing a saint spread throughout the god world in a few days, including the demon race. In a short period of time, Shenzhen became the strongest force in the sacred world. There was no other. Of course, this did not include the 4 great academies and celestial palace. These were all forces with sages overseeing them. They were no longer native forces of the god world. Shenzhen's reputation increased by a lot again. In the god world, Murong Pavilion's reputation even showed signs of surpassing Murongyu's. The sacred mountain was decorated with lanterns and streamers. Everyone was celebrating Murong Pavilion killing a saint. This matter was worth hyping up. Moreover, because of the war for many years, Murongyu also intended to let Shenzhen's people relax. Otherwise, if they were always tense, it would not be good for their cultivation. Even those who were cultivating in the Hichu, Luoshu world all came out. On a certain peak of the sacred mountain, Murongyu and Murong Pavilion sat facing each other. Little Xian, did you really accept the Eastern Wilderness's inheritance? The blood-red, divine light that burst out of you earlier should be related to the Eastern Wilderness, right? Only now did Murongyu have the time to ask. He was very interested in how Murong Pavilion accepted the Eastern Wilderness's inheritance. Moreover, he wanted to check if there were any side effects after Murong Pavilion accepted the Eastern Wilderness's inheritance. However, after checking Murong Pavilion a few times, he found that Murong Pavilion's strength, physical body, and even soul were close to perfection. There were no side effects. On the contrary, it contained an enormous amount of power. Murong Pavilion did not answer immediately. Instead, he took a long time to organize his words. After a long time, he said slowly, "Father, I passed the Eastern Wilderness's test to accept the Eastern Wilderness's inheritance." As it turned out, the water platform's secret realm was not a forbidden land. That was the Eastern Wilderness's inheritance space. Everyone in the desolate world thought that it was a forbidden land. This was because no one who entered the water platform's secret realm could come out. In reality, they were not trapped to death in the forbidden land. Anyone who entered the water platform's secret realm would be sucked into the Eastern Wilderness's inheritance space and forced to accept the Eastern Wilderness's test. This was the kind of strength, physical body, and even soul that Murong Pavilion had to endure. During this process, no one could leave the water platform's secret realm. This meant that there were only 2 ways to enter the water platform's secret realm. One was to fail the test and be tortured to death in the process. The other was to pass the test and receive the Eastern Wilderness's inheritance, or leave the water platform's secret realm. However, after countless years, no one knew that everyone was forced to go through the test. Other than Murong Pavilion, no one else could pass the test, and were all tortured to death. Murong Pavilion said it casually. However, Murongyu knew how dangerous Murong Pavilion was back then. If anything had gone wrong, he would have been buried there forever. The danger and pain that he had to endure back then were indescribable and unimaginable. As long as I pass the test, I can receive the inheritance? Murongyu asked. Murong Pavilion shook his head and said with a smile, "How could it be that easy?" The test was only the first hurdle. Also, after receiving the inheritance, I found out that only one person can receive it. This means that if Father and Little Yin had both entered and passed the test, the 3 of us would have had to kill each other. Murongyu also felt a wave of lingering fear. Fortunately, Murong Xian and his sister were twins and had special senses. If it had been Murong Pavilion, Murongyu would have rushed in immediately. Then, father and son would have to kill each other. Even if Murongyu and Little Yin didn't want to, the Eastern Wilderness could force them to do it. The Eastern Wilderness's inheritance was filled with their memories, experiences, cultivation methods, and so on. The amount of information was enormous. Even though Murong Pavilion's body and soul had reached the peak of a true god's, he was still almost crushed. Also, a lot of the information was still sealed. Only when Murong Pavilion's power reached a certain level would the information be gradually unsealed. Actually, the so-called inheritance is nonsense. As he said that, Murong Pavilion suddenly sneered, and his eyes flashed with cold light. Murongyu narrowed his eyes and looked at Murong Pavilion. The first part of the inheritance was real. However, When I was almost done with the inheritance, the eastern wilderness's consciousness appeared. He wanted to seize my body, take over my body. Murong Yu's pupils abruptly shrank as a cold glint shot out from the depths of his eyes. If not for the fact that he had thoroughly examined Murong Xian's soul before and knew that his soul was unharmed, he would have attacked him right away. Because what if Murong Pavilion was controlled by the eastern wilderness? The so-called inheritance is just a trap that the eastern wilderness didn't set up before it died. Otherwise, why would it give me the inheritance when I'm not the same kind as the desolate? Chapter 1165. Desolation was a world-destroying insect that had almost wiped out the entire god world in ancient times. At that time, many experts, including saints, had engaged in a life-and-death battle with desolation. In the end, after many experts of the god world had fallen, desolation was finally wiped out. However, the god world had also been destroyed and was no longer suitable for saints to live in. Thus, saints had all ascended to the current sacred world. After countless years of reproduction, the god world had finally regained its former prosperity. However, because the god world had long been wiped out, the people of the god world could only live on Desolation's corpse. The Desolation continent was actually the corpse of a ferocious beast called Desolation. These corpses entrenched themselves in the sky, forming a vast expanse of land. But now, for the sake of their own selfish desires, the saints began to revive Desolation in a deranged manner. These desolates were killed by countless saints. They had the terrifying ability to destroy the divine world and wipe out civilizations. Once Desolation was revived, the current god world would not be able to resist it. At that time, the entire god world, including the immortal world and the cultivation world, would be destroyed. In a night, this news had spread to every corner of the god world. In an instant, countless people were shocked. Whether it was Desolation's existence or the saints' conspiracy, it was the first time for most people to hear about it. While everyone was doubting, another piece of news continued to spread. Why were the two races fighting? And it was only on one continent? And why did they suddenly change the battlefield? This was because some accident had happened in the Eastern Desolation continent during the First War, and Eastern Desolation was completely dead. Since they could not revive Eastern Desolation, the people of the sacred world decided to change the battlefield and revive young Desolation. After many arguments, there were finally people who believed it and began to withdraw from young Desolation continent. However, only a few people believed it, and a considerable number of people remained doubtful. There were even some people who did not believe it at all. For the sake of the god world not being destroyed, for the sake of not having a place to live in the future, Shenzhen will not continue to participate in the war. At the same time, Shenzhen also welcomes the various major forces to form an alliance and end this meaningless war that might even lead to the destruction of the god world. Under the argument that Desolation was a world-destroying insect and that the saints wanted to destroy the world, Shenzhen's declaration had spread to every corner of the god world. Immediately, many forces began to respond to Murong Yu. The Fan clan, Ouyang clan, and other clans immediately announced their alliance with Murong Yu in a high-profile manner to resist this act of destroying the god realm. Other than some of the major forces in the god world, the experts in the desolate world also announced their alliance with Murong Yu. Shenzhen began to go against the sage. Everyone could not help but recall the scene of Murong Xian killing a saint not long ago. Could it be that Shenzhen's side is telling the truth? Many forces became more and more hesitant. The human race and the sacred race were already far apart, and the environment of the demon-desolate continent was similar to the god realm, so there was no conflict of interest, not to mention exterminating the enemy's race. But why did the people of the saints' world want to exterminate the other race? Furthermore, it was not only the saints of the human clan who had descended to the lower realm, but also the saints of the demon clan. Was this just a battle between saints of the sacred world, or was it really like what Murong Yu said, for the sake of reviving Huang? More and more people began to have doubts. Furthermore, many people noticed the changes in the sun-desolate continent. Similar to the eastern desolate continent, in the beginning, these two continents were no different from ordinary continents. But as more and more people died, the murderous aura became more and more intense. Perhaps some people thought that it was because there were too many people in the war, but more people began to feel that the theory of reviving Huang was correct. Therefore, more and more people left the sun-desolate continent. But overall, the number of people who left was still too little. But then, something happened that caused a large number of people to leave the sun-desolate continent. Suddenly, one day, the vice-palace master of the demon clan, the 10th level quasi-saint, was hunted down by people all over the world. The reason was that he spread rumors within the demon clan, which affected the morale of the army. Actually, this person only said that the palace master of the celestial palace was a puppet of a saint, and the human clan and the demon clan of the sacred world had already joined forces long ago, controlling everything in the god realm in a futile attempt to revive Huang. Moreover, it was not only the palace master of the celestial palace who was a puppet, but also the deans of the 4 great academies of the human clan. When this news was spread, the entire world was in an uproar. They believed that the saint wanted to revive Huang even more. And the vice-palace master of the celestial palace was Nie Tianyu. After spreading the news, Nie Tianyu immediately fled for his life. But he was pursued by the saints of the demon clan. In the end, Nie Tianyu fled to the human clan and entered the sacred mountain. Nie Tianyu actually fled to Shenzhen to seek protection, and the saints of the demon clan rushed to the sacred mountain and surrounded it. But the saints of the human clan were indifferent, turning a blind eye. Many people believed that they had descended to the lower realm to revive Huang. Therefore, more people began to withdraw from the sun-desolate continent. This is simply too despicable. This Murong, you really deserves to die. In the main hall of the primeval college, the saints of the human clan were gathered together, each of them brimming with killing intent. Because now, more than half of the people on the sun-desolate continent had already retreated. The people of both clans were the same. And even if there were still people on the sun-desolate continent, they had already stopped fighting. The most important thing to revive Huang was to use the blood and killing intent of the war to constantly nourish it. And once the nourishment of blood and killing intent was interrupted, or if these two things were not enough, Huang's revival would be interrupted. And it was obvious that the blood and killing intent were not enough. Yang Huang's revival was forcefully interrupted. How could this not make them angry? Murong Yu deserves to die. Join forces with the saints of the demon clan and directly kill Shenzhen. As long as we kill Murong Yu and Shenzhen, who in the god realm would dare to fight against us? Hong's face was ferocious. His killing intent towards Murong Yu had reached its peak in history. Immediately bring the experts of the 4 great academies to the sacred mountain. You must kill Shenzhen and Murong Yu and his son. We must not allow anyone to ruin our plan. Kill whoever stands in our way. Man laughed sinisterly, his killing intent soaring. Immediately, dozens of saints of the human clan brought all kinds of experts and charged towards Murong Yu with killing intent. Murong Yu and Shenzhen disturbed the morale of the army and spread rumors for no reason. They truly deserve to be killed. The demon clan's desire to destroy us will not die. As long as we do not eliminate them, there will be a day when they will destroy the human clan. Therefore, the demon clan must be eliminated. And not only did Murong Yu and Shenzhen not contribute, they even spread rumors. Now, after a unanimous decision, Murong Yu and Shenzhen would be directly erased from the god realm. We welcome those with lofty ideals to join us in eliminating Shenzhen together. When the saints of the human clan were charging towards Shenzhen with killing intent, one after another, news kept spreading. Shenzhen was going to directly fight with the saints. Although Shenzhen's Murong Xian could kill saints, but could Shenzhen fight against so many saints? When the news spread, countless people from all over the god realm rushed to the sacred mountain to watch the show. After all, this was the first god realm force in history that dared to directly fight against a saint. And if the news was true, then Shenzhen would directly start a war with the human clan of the Holy World. Outside the sacred mountain, the saints of the human clan and demon clan had already gathered. There were over 100 of them. Other than them, there were many quasi-saint level experts not far from them. These were the experts of the 4 great academies and the other forces that had submitted to them. Shenzhen's disciples are pretty good. You are not our match. Going against us is going against the human clan of the Holy World. Do you think you are a match for the human clan of the Holy World? That's impossible. Now, I'll give you a chance. If you surrender within 2 hours, we will let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, Shenzhen and Murong, you will fall together and be erased from the God realm. The saint took a step forward and exploded with an aura that soared into the sky. Waves of aura swept out like a stormy sea, covering the sky and covering the earth, intimidating thousands of worlds. Idiot! If you have the ability, get all the human clan of the Holy World to come down. We will definitely surrender. But with just a few pieces of trash like you, it's better for you to go somewhere cool. Before this voice finished speaking, there was a sneer from Shenzhen, followed by a roar of laughter. The saint's face instantly darkened, and killing intent filled the air. I'll give you 2 hours. After 2 hours, you will be killed without mercy. The voice with a gloomy face shouted coldly. Idiot, just you wait. If you have the ability, come and attack us. Shenzhen's people hooted, not putting these saints in their eyes at all. Perhaps only Shenzhen's people dared to be so arrogant. If it were other people, they wouldn't even dare to look at the saints. So how would they dare to curse at them so arrogantly, or even call them trash? However, although Shenzhen's ordinary disciples were happily cursing at the saints, the upper echelons of Shenzhen and the experts of other forces gathered in the sacred palace with heavy expressions. Morongyu, what should we do? Hundreds of saints. I think they are serious this time. If they all unleash the might of the saint, I'm afraid we won't be able to withstand it. Old man Ouyang said in a deep voice. The others nodded. The situation was extremely grim. If they were not careful, Shenzhen and them would be killed by those saints. Moreover, those people would definitely kill him, because they would not allow anyone to ruin their plan. Should they fight them directly? If the other party did not unleash the might of a saint, it was not impossible for them to kill them together. However, if one of them unleashed the might of a saint, they would all die with a slap before they were pulled into the holy world. No matter how strong one was below the level of a saint, they would not be able to withstand the might of a saint's slap. Chapter 1166. Morongyu frowned slightly, feeling a little unhappy. In fact, if he had a choice, he would definitely not start a war with the saint so quickly, because on their side, only Morong Xian could kill the saint. If the others fought the saint alone, most of them would definitely fail. Even he might not be able to kill the saint. The best time was to wait until he stepped into the quasi-saint realm and completely controlled the heavenly domain before starting the war. However, after opening the second battlefield, under the stimulation of the saints' policies, the war in the Yanghuang continent was more than 10,000 times more intense than in the eastern wilderness. At that rate, the Yanghuang continent might be revived very soon. Once it was revived, it would be too late for Murongyu to do anything. Therefore, he could only be forced to start a war. However, even though the saints had forced their way in, Murongyu had already achieved his goal, hadn't he? The war in the Yanghuang continent had temporarily stopped. However, Morongyu's biggest problem now was the saints outside. Father, I'll go kill them. Just as Murongyu was muttering to himself, Murong Xian came out to ask for battle. Murongyu only looked at Murong Xian with a solemn expression. Although Murong Xian was powerful and had the support of the eastern wilderness. However, there were hundreds of saints outside. Furthermore, Murong Xian had already unleashed his power. Once he appeared, those saints would immediately unleash their power and kill Murong Xian. After all, as long as they got rid of the threat of Murong Xian, Shenzhen would no longer be able to kill a saint. You can't stop those saints alone. Fangua frowned and said, if we don't come out, are we going to wait for them to attack? Although the Saint Mountain is powerful, if they unleash their full power, we won't be able to stop them. Murong Xian looked at Murong Yu anxiously. Calm down. It's not that easy for them to break through the Saint Mountain. Murong Yu sneered. Hearing this, everyone looked at Murong Yu in surprise. We don't need to fight. They won't be able to break through the sacred mountain in a short time. Murong Yu smiled faintly and continued. Don't act rashly. I'll be right back. Before he could finish his sentence, Murong Yu's figure disappeared from where he stood. Everyone was left looking at each other in dismay. They didn't know what methods Murong Yu had, but since Murong Yu was so confident, they also believed in Murong Yu. In fact, they had no choice but to believe it. Because they were in the same boat now, they could only trust each other. Otherwise, if the boat capsized, everyone would die. After disappearing from the Shenzhen Temple, Murong Yu reappeared in the main hall of the Chaos Secret Plane. When he appeared, he saw Lu Haozong looking at a huge crystal in front of him with a slight frown. The crystal just stood there on the floor of the hall, without any energy fluctuations. But it was shining with a strange light. When Murong Yu looked at it, his spirit seemed to float. At the same time, illusions appeared in his eyes. Kid, this is good stuff. Lu Haozong turned to look at Murong Yu, unable to hide the smile on his face. Nonsense, of course my stuff is good stuff. But don't just admire it. Have you completed the task I gave you? Don't say you haven't completed it. You're an undead stage super expert. An undead stage existence, if you can't even complete such a small task. Murong Yu looked at Lu Haozong with disdain. Lu Haozong wanted to vomit blood. He had only said a few words, but Murong Yu had already started talking like a machine gun. He didn't even have the time to interrupt. Did he say he didn't complete it? This heart of illusion. The heart of illusion was the thing that had almost trapped Murong Yu to death in the divine sea of the monster race. If Hichu hadn't seen through it back then, he would probably still be in the illusion. At that time, Hichu said that Murong Yu couldn't handle the heart of illusion and that it was useless. But Murong Yu didn't want to waste it, so he still took the heart of illusion. And just before he decided to fight with the saint, he gave the heart of illusion to Lu Haozong. In the beginning, Murong Yu was afraid that the heart of illusion wouldn't have any effect on the saint. After all, the heart of illusion wasn't a high-level thing. However, when he found Lu Haozong and took out the heart of illusion, he was confident that he could succeed. Because at that moment, Lu Haozong, an eternal stage quasi-saint, was pulled into the illusion by the heart of illusion. Seeing that Lu Haozong didn't notice it in the illusion, Murong Yu laughed. Even an eternal stage expert didn't notice it when he entered the illusion, let alone those ordinary saints in the divine realm. Those saints were far weaker than Lu Haozong, and their realms were suppressed. Once they entered the illusion, one could imagine what would happen to them. Murong Yu could actually place the heart of illusion directly on the holy mountain. At that time, the entire holy mountain and outside of the holy mountain would be radiated by the heart of illusion, and the entire void would be shrouded in the illusion. Once someone stepped into the illusion, they would be immersed in it without realizing it. However, Murong Yu couldn't control the heart of illusion. In other words, if he placed the heart of illusion on the holy mountain, Shenzhen's disciples would also enter the illusion. For many days, Lu Haozong was immersed in the illusion, and there was no difference. Therefore, in the end, Murong Yu had to wake Lu Haozong up. After realizing that he had been fooled by the heart of illusion, Lu Haozong didn't get angry. Instead, he was very happy, because the heart of illusion was too powerful. In the end, he learned that Murong Yu wanted him to find a way to control the heart of illusion. Lu Haozong immediately agreed. This heart of illusion is very powerful and strange. I reckon that even a Saint King or an expert of a higher realm would be affected. Therefore, I can't control it, Lu Haozong said in a deep voice. Murong Yu was speechless. It seemed that this guy really couldn't handle it. However, just as he was about to despise Lu Haozong continued. However, I have thought of a formation that can temporarily offset the illusory attack of the heart of illusion. While speaking, Lu Haozong shot a ray of light into Murong Yu's body. Suddenly, a complicated and obscure formation directly appeared in Murong-Yu's mind. Murong-Yu immediately calmed down and began to cultivate these formations. With his strength and comprehension, he quickly gained control of the formation. This formation can't last for too long, and it consumes a lot of power. Don't worry about power. There are many chaos divine veins here. However, if you want to place the Heart of Illusion on the Holy Mountain, you have to rearrange this formation in 3 days at most. Otherwise, it will collapse even with a lot of power. This was an incomplete formation that could only withstand the attack of the Heart of Illusion for 3 days. It was like a one-time formation. However, this also made Murong-Yu ecstatic. With this illusory realm, he would definitely give those sages a hard time this time. Kid, go. I look forward to the moment you kill those sages. I really want to see the expressions of those humans and demons in the holy world when they know that all their sages in the lower realm have been killed by you. Lu Haozong sneered. In principle, he was extremely opposed to those people resurrecting desolation. This was because Lu Haozong had also ascended from the divine world. The God realm was his hometown, although there was no one in the God realm who was related to him. Murong-Yu smiled and nodded. Then his figure flickered and left the Chaos secret ground. When he returned to the Holy Palace again, there was still more than an hour before the deadline. He should be able to arrange the Heart of Illusion. Everyone, don't be impatient. I will first set up a formation. Today, we're going to kill all these sages. Murong-Yu left this sentence and stepped out of the Holy Palace. Everyone else looked at each other in dismay. They had no idea what Murong-Yu was up to. Before Murong-Yu left, he was still frowning slightly. When he came back, he had a smile on his face. He even said that he was going to kill those sages. What's going on? Everyone was puzzled, but one by one they came out of the Holy Palace and followed Murong-Yu. Murong-Yu came to the center of the Holy Mountain, and under everyone's puzzled eyes, he took out the Heart of Illusion from the Hichu Luoshu. The moment the Heart of Illusion appeared, the quasi-saint not far from Murong-Yu only felt that the void in front of them seemed to ripple. Then, a faint wave of energy spread out. The next moment, they did not find anything else, and nothing changed. Looking at everyone, Murong-Yu showed a smile on his face. These people noticed that there were no changes in their surroundings. But in fact, they had all been shrouded in an illusion. It was just that they did not notice it. At this time, if Murong-Yu wanted to kill them, they would not even know how they died. In an instant, the entire Holy Mountain, including the Holy Mountain, was enveloped by the Heart of Illusion. All life had entered the Heart of Illusion, including the sages outside. If Murong-Yu wanted to kill them at this time, it was definitely the best time. However, how many people could he kill alone? Of course, the best way was for everyone in Shenzhen to rush up and kill them quickly. Therefore, at the same time that he took out the Heart of Illusion, Murong-Yu also began to set up the formation. The first time he set up the formation, it took Murong-Yu half a day. It had long exceeded the 2-hour limit that the sages had given Shenzhen. However, because they were all immersed in the illusion, no one noticed. Wake up, all of you! After setting up the formation, Murong-Yu snapped his fingers. Suddenly, everyone in the Holy Mountain could not help but shiver and wake up from the illusion. However, they did not notice anything different, because they did not know that they had entered the illusion. Chapter 1167. Now, let's go kill the saints. Murong-Yu glanced at the quasi-saint and divine heavenly sovereigns around him and said faintly, "We're going just like that." Hearing Murong-Yu's words, everyone present was stunned. If they were really going to kill the saints just like that, why didn't that person do it earlier? Moreover, Murong-Yu really didn't do anything now. Murong-Yu smiled. It was normal that they didn't know, because they didn't know that they had entered an illusion. Although they'd been awakened by Murong-Yu, the people outside hadn't been awakened. They were still flying in the illusion. Maybe those saints were attacking Shenzhen and had already killed Murong-Yu and the others. In fact, it was just as Murong-Yu said. Those saints didn't know that they had entered an illusion. When they felt that 2 hours were up, they immediately took action. Just as Fangua and the others guessed, one of the saints immediately unleashed his saint aura and slapped Murong Xian to death when he was being pulled into the holy world. Without Murong Xian, Shangzhen's people couldn't stop them at all. In an instant, a large number of quasi-saint and divine heavenly sovereigns were killed. In the end, Murong Yu and the others all hid in the holy mountain. The holy mountain was very powerful. No matter how the saints bombarded it, they couldn't break it. In the end, 40 to 50 saints all unleashed their saint aura. Before they were pulled into the holy world, they attacked at the same time and finally smashed the holy mountain. When Murong Yu was ready to lead Shangzhen and the other experts to kill the saints, it was when those saints broke into the holy mountain and were killing inside. Everything was evolving according to the imagination in their minds. These people didn't even think that they were just in an illusion. Whoosh! Murong Yu didn't answer. His body swayed, and he had already soared into the air and shot out of the holy mountain. The others were puzzled. However, when they saw Murong Yu's confident look, they all flew up. They've all fallen into an illusion. He should be standing there motionless. Originally, you shouldn't have been able to see them. But because of some method, you have been awakened from the illusion by me and can see anyone. Therefore, your mission now is to kill the Saint of Learning. Use your strongest attacks and kill them in the shortest amount of time. Otherwise, once they are alerted and unleash the might of a saint, we will suffer casualties. Remember, we have to kill them all with 0 casualties. Everyone was taken aback as they spread out their spirit senses. However, they could not find anything out of the ordinary in their surroundings. What kind of technique was this? How could it create such a terrifying illusion? It was so powerful that they didn't even notice it. You don't have to waste your energy. Even high-level saints can fall into this environment unknowingly. You won't be able to notice it. Murong Yu's calm voice sounded. Everyone was almost scared to death. If even high-level saints could be trapped, how could they, who were only quasi-saint, be trapped? Therefore, everyone retracted their spirit senses. Then, each and every one of them revealed a look of excitement. The main target this time is the 100 saints. After killing them, try to kill the other quasi-saint experts. Although those sages have suppressed their cultivation to the 10th level of quasi-sage, their physical bodies are still sage physiques and are extremely powerful. Ordinary quasi-saint can't hurt them at all. Therefore, you have to split into groups and work together. On the way, Murong Yu laid out the strategy in a low voice. Shangzhen did not have many quasi-saint experts, only a little more than 100. However, there were thousands of saint heavenly sovereigns in the desolate world, and all of them were at the peak of the saint heavenly sovereign. In addition, there were the experts and forces that were originally allied with Murong Yu. Now, Murong Yu had more than 10,000 quasi-saint experts by his side. In other words, if they were divided evenly, more than 100 people would take care of a saint. If 100 quasi-saint experts attacked a saint whose level was suppressed, and it was a sneak attack, they would be severely injured immediately, even if they did not die. Although this was a sneak attack, they were saints. If a god did not sneak attack, how could he kill a saint? When Murong Yu and the others arrived outside Shangzhen, everyone was amused. Those people stared blankly in front of them, standing motionless in their original spots. They did not even notice that Murong Yu and the others had arrived beside them. They were all fighting in the illusion. These bastards deserve to die. How dare they attack our Shangzhen? Looking at those saints, everyone could not help but gnash their teeth. There was no need for Murong Yu to instruct them at all, and they automatically divided into 100 groups. Each group had more than 100 people, and their strength was well matched. They surrounded their target from afar. Murong Yu did not make a move. Instead, he watched from afar. After all, if he did not borrow the power of other quasi-saint experts, he would not be able to reach the 10th level quasi-saint. Even if he attacked, it would be useless. Of course, he could use the flame of primal chaos. In fact, he was not confident that the flame of primal chaos could burn a saint to death. Attack! Murong Yu suddenly roared. Originally, everyone had raised their strength to the limit. They had either summoned their magic treasures or divine weapons and used whatever was the most powerful attack. When Murong Yu roared, these people erupted at the same time. Tens of thousands of quasi-saint experts erupted at the same time. The momentum was so terrifying that it could shatter the sky in an instant. The moment they attacked, Shenzhen and the others in the distance felt an incomparably terrifying aura of death envelop the land. It made even their souls tremble. Countless people prostrated themselves on the ground under this terrible pressure. This was only the aftermath of Murongyu and the others erupting their auras. If all of them came crashing down, most of Shenzhen's disciples would be crushed to death. Kill! At the same time, more than 10,000 experts on Shenzhen's side roared at the same time. Terrifying forces condensed into an enormous torrent of power in the void. It carried a terrible aura that could destroy heaven and earth, and it came crashing down on Murongyu. At this moment, the saints who had fallen into an illusion and were slaughtering their way through the sacred mountain suddenly felt an incomparably strong aura appear in their hearts out of nowhere. The aura came so strangely that they did not even have time to react. However, they soon realized what was going on. Ah! Screams of agony rang out continuously. This was because some of the sages had their physical bodies and souls destroyed by the many powerful beings of Glory Sect. They were dead on the spot. Rumble. At the same time that the saints died, a large blood cloud appeared in the sky out of thin air. Blood-colored lightning and a rain of blood poured down. The saints had fallen, a phenomenon of heaven and earth. More than 10 saints died in an instant. They did not even have time to react. After killing these 10 saints, Shenzhen's thousands of experts once again locked onto the nearest target and unleashed their strongest attacks. At the same time that they were killed, the saints in the illusion saw that those who had died had all disappeared into thin air. It was as if they had never appeared. Not even their auras were left behind. These saints were people of the lowest realm in the sacred world. However, they were saints after all and had seen a lot. How could they not react at this time? Oh no, it's an illusion. All of the saints reacted. However, reacting and escaping from the illusion were two completely different things. Back then, Murongyu had reacted early on. Didn't it take him a long time to find the heart of the illusion and escape from the illusion in the end? Therefore, before they could react, the saints had disappeared one by one. They had all died. At the same time that the saints died, the sky near the sacred mountain was shrouded in purplish-black blood clouds, blood-colored lightning, and blood rain. Too many saints had died. The blood-red blood clouds continued to gather and eventually turned purplish-black. Heaven and earth wailed, and the earth mourned. For a moment, all of Shenzhen's disciples and those near Shenzhen, regardless of their strength, there was a kind of sadness in the depths of their hearts. It was as if a loved one had died. In a few breaths of time, more saints than ordinary saints had died. The experts on Shenzhen's side finally witnessed the strength of the saint physique. A considerable number of them were attacked by hundreds or even thousands of quasi-saint at the same time. However, they resisted and were not killed directly. However, they were constantly attacked by the outside world. The many saints who were lost in the illusion were finally forced to escape from it. However, after escaping from the illusion, they were furious. At this time, they were all seriously injured. The experts on Shenzhen's side were crazily attacking them with ferocious expressions. They were immediately stunned. They did not know why they had fallen into Murongyu's trap and entered that damned illusion. There was no extra time for them to think. Immediately, they had to erupt with all their strength. As long as they erupted with supreme saint might, even if they were no match for it, the power of the sacred world would pull them into the sacred world, and they would eventually escape with their lives. In the instant that they woke up, many more saints had fallen. As the number of saints decreased, Shenzhen's side became stronger and stronger. In the beginning, there were only more than 100 people attacking a saint. Now, there were at least hundreds or thousands of them being killed at the same time. The saints who had not been killed were under great pressure, even if they were injured more and more, and people were constantly dying. What's going on? At this time, Hong and the other 3 who were far away in Primeval College, and the Palace Master of the Celestial Palace in the Demon Wilderness continent, finally noticed this phenomenon. Because too many saints had died, half of the sky was filled with purplish-black blood clouds. "It's over." Hong and the others' expressions changed drastically. One by one, they leaped into the air and shot towards Shenzhen's side. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.